Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of A Taboo Life, where everyone has a story to tell. I'm your host, Drew Franks, or Frank for short, and I want to thank you guys again for listening. Come check out the website, ataboolife.com, where you can listen to other episodes of the podcast, read free books on there, read short stories and poems because I am that sappy, and some very interesting articles, such as one of my favorite ones called In and Out, Lubeck, Getting Drunk with the Mouse, and a Heart Filled with Wanderlust. A Wayward Wanderer's Tips for a Road Trip Across the U.S. It's one of my favorite articles I've written. I really love that article because I enjoy travel, and I wrote some hopefully helpful tips for anyone thinking about traveling across the U.S. in a car. So, anyone thinking about a road trip, read this article. Today's guest is Mr. Trey Maccabee, with no A between the M and the C. It's a really good episode. He is a former Secret Service agent, firefighter, CPA. He is currently in the process of starting a small company called The Standard Gentleman, which is a website which helps men find their masculinity in a really healthy way. This episode was really eye-opening because he talks about his life, which is really interesting, which is really what will be the word? Very accomplished will be the word. But also his struggles with his divorce and child custody issues, which we get into depth about. There's a lot of men out there who are going to the same issues with child custody and divorce. This is not a woman bashing episode or anything like that. It's just we're just talking about his life and what he had to go through when going through his divorce and trying to get custody of his child. But besides that, very, very insightful man. Loves to talk, which made my job a little easier. But it is a great episode, so I hope you guys enjoy it. So check it out now. And we're live. Alright guys, I'm here with Mr. Trey McKay. Say your last name again? Maccabee. Spelled differently. We talked about this before we actually started recording. Explain who you are, because you actually have a really interesting path or story.
Well, I've come a long way. I'm about to turn 41 in about a week. But from an adult life, I've been everything from a CPA and firefighter to a Special Olympics swim coach to doing some cross-country cycling.
Bring that mic just a little closer to you.
I worked as a decade as a Secret Service agent. I was a director of incident management, fraud and incident management for a financial institution. And I've been doing flood work, repairing after a couple of hurricanes to get out of that kind of lifestyle, and just helping folks that have been displaced by natural disasters and life in general. So I'm have a white collar cybercrime background, as well as blue collar farming background as well.
Basically, you got the full spectrum.
I'm everything. I say I'm everything and I'm nothing. So there's nothing I can't do, but it's only at the same time I sometimes say, well, I don't know that I do anything great, but I do everything good in a way. So
it sounds like
get my hands into just about everything.
And it sounds like you have a really interesting life. And also tell us about what you're doing right now too, because we're going to talk again get into depth about that later in the episode. But your project about helping men out.
No, yeah, absolutely. I've kind of gone through a lot in life, good and bad, and I've had some tremendous achievements as well as a lot of personal failures. And I've come to learn, the greatest teachers are your mistakes, and I don't like making mistakes. I don't like how they make me feel, and I'm constantly trying to become a better man, a better father, a better, man in general for anyone that is around me, whether it's friend or relationship-wise and other means, and just trying to become that better person. And over the years of learning and refining myself and evolving as that man, I've learned so much. And a lot of it, I learned that because of the achievements and some of the things that I did, and I was able to take all those things together. And now I'm moving out on a project. It's called Standard Gentleman, and I'm actually building the website now, and it's technically kind of live, but the content is still developing.
You're still making it.
But being able to share that in a way that I can help men who they're not connecting the dots on what is their purpose in life, and are they following that purpose, or are they a man that just doesn't have a goal or a purpose. He's just wandering in life, and he's going to hurt people because there's nothing that's driving him. And when you've got your passion and your purpose and you're following that, you're giving something to the world, and that attracts like-minded people and brings the right people into your life. And how we as men can have build the right lives for ourselves and our the people that are with us and our families and everything around us, if we just take that step to I call it's the line where you stop, you make a choice to quit being a boy in the boyish ways and become a man.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that till I was 35. It's got nothing
really?
to do with, it's got nothing to do with age and or what you look like or your build, that you're a man. It's when you just recognize that for a long time it's like I felt like I was a boy in a man's body. It's like I'm this man, and I look it and I walk the part, and I look the part and I act the part, but I don't always feel it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until going through some personal tragedy that I was like, okay, well, now it's time for me to step up and be that man. How do I need to do that?
Well, so like you saying that, and it's like you kind of describe how I feel right now, because like I'm going through my own little phase in life where I'm still trying to figure out find something purposeful for me, and this is something this little project I'm doing right now is something I get meaning out of. But there's a lot of times where I'm actually, because I did shit in my life, I did a lot of adult shit. But there's times where I'm actually thinking about, like, man, am I still a boy or am I a man? Even though I'm about to be 31 in this month, I always kind of question myself, like, man, I think I still got a lot to grow. Like, I still got a lot to do in my life.
I say that, and I'm, like I said, about to be 41 here shortly, and I'm kind of like, I've had all these achievements, and I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of this stuff, but my resume is ridiculous. But it's nothing but achievements. And they're great in their own right. But so I could tell you that when I was a Secret Service agent, that I felt like a boy. It was like, I'm doing all these things, and I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, how am I doing this? I'm just a kid, but I'm 30, something years old. But it wasn't until I really, I had faced a lot of adversity in life, but when I had to really face up to, answer the questions of who I am and what I am, and my, masculinity or anything else is being challenged. And I had to look and say, well, what am I? Am I what they're saying I am, or am I something different than that? And I had to confront that. And that was that point where it's like, okay, well, I think I'm this kind of guy because I'm doing these things. And, I've got a 6-figure job. I've got a college degree, and I've got a big house. I've got a wife. I've got a child. I've got a nice car. I've got all the things that society tells me I have to have. And I've done all these things, but I didn't feel like I was that high achiever, that man of like, not to say in control of your life, but I was just doing what I felt I had to do. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And all that's since just been completely broken down and kind of thrown out. And now I'm like, I have nothing. I'm completely starting over in life with 20 years experience, basically.
Which is
and
still not bad to start over with.
But but I mean, financially, and I went through a period of, okay, well, I've achieved all these great things. You know, I've stood outside the Oval Office. I've protected our highest leaders.
Mm-hmm.
What job am I going to do that's going to satisfy me? That's going to feel like what is my purpose now? Yeah, going to any just regular job, what am I doing? Collecting a paycheck. And that's where I ended up going down the road of standard gentleman of, well, I got all this. I am all this. How can I use it? And how can I take that and it be something good?
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of reached that point in life where I don't want to protect everyone. I don't want to jump in and, you're having this problem, I got you.
Get that?
I got you.
You have that warrior mindset.
Well, it's that, and actually it was a woman. It was an old woman who was a retired counselor that kind of put me in the frame of mind, or gave me that frame of mind of, she was asking me about my story. I was going through a lot with my daughter and custody issues
mm-hmm.
That have been, a major role in my life change. But I told her how, I had to stay calm and be very positive about all the negative stuff that was going on because my family was freaking out over everything and what was going to happen and how things were going to play out. But as they saw me staying calm and collected about it and not getting bent out of shape and losing my mind over the situation, they calmed down. And this, like 70-something-year-old lady just looked at me. She's like, "You're the lighthouse." She's like, "The storm's raging around, but you're just standing there, being bright and shining." And they see that. They see the lighthouse from shore and they calm down because they know that, they're being guided to where they need to go. And she said, if you were just out in the waters with them, rocking around, then nothing's going to, you're all just going to be all over the place. And I just kind of took that and I was like, wow. Because for so many years, it's like I was the rescue boat. You're out there and, in hell, risking your life, putting yourself out there to just save people, get them, just to help them. Whether they wanted you to or not, you're just there and you're helping them and whatnot. And now it's more a perspective of, I'm not here to save you. I'm here to help you save yourself. Here's what you can do if you're willing to, to move on with your life, to be something bigger, to be something better, to understand who you are, what's your purpose, all these things. And I use who I am and what I am and what I've learned. And I think so far, even the little bit I've done, I've had so many people just reach out to me and tell me just simple things, saying it, how it's helped them, deal with their situation just by reading a few things that I've written, to know that they're not alone. But a lot of people can relate. I relate to a lot of people, whether you've been in military government service, whether you've been a farmer and blue collar, whether you're an IT professional or you're working in a bank or whatever. I've been in all of these positions,
office jockey or something,
and I understand where they are. Like I can talk to somebody, and it could be, a guy that's works in somebody's IT department. I worked cyber crimes. I used to do computer forensics, and I understand that lifestyle that they live. If it's a mechanic, I've literally spent a week just ripping out the underside of my truck and doing body work and putting new exhaust headers on there, and replacing all this. So it's like I get into all those things, and I understand where they are, and I can relate to those. And when I write, I can relate to all these different areas, and people can connect with that. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, I've done all this, I've been all this, but I messed up, and here's why I went wrong, and here's why I went, what I did to try and change it. And it just kind of clicks with a lot of people, and I feel like that's kind of my, and I had to go through the last couple of years or so of trying to figure out what that purpose is. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
I'm almost 40 and all this is changing. And what do I do? Should I just go get a job, go be an investigator? I was like, I can do it. I can make a lot of money. I can make sure all the bills are paid. Because you're still in that mentality of, well, I was doing this, and I have to keep that lifestyle up.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, I'm just trying to keep a roof over my head. I want to make sure that I can have a roof over my head, and hopefully I'll be able to take care of my daughter and provide that environment for her and be a model for what she, sees and needs from a man. Mm-hmm. As a father, I'm her first love.
Yeah.
As a man, I'm the first one that she recognized that she has that sort of loving affection to, and whether I like it or not, or whether it's a good thing or not, she's gonna likely try and find a guy like me because that's what she understands as a man.
The first model, basically, first male model.
Yeah. So I quickly realized, when she was first born, and the years after that's got to be a good man. And if I don't model that, then how does she even know, what that man is to look for? And that's kind of been a lot of driving force, behind sort of I wouldn't say my behavior, but my conduct and how I'm carrying myself. That sort of made me step up from, that boyhood, mentality of, and a lot of that is, am I good enough as well? And am I achieving the things that I'm supposed to achieve as a man?
Yeah.
And we're always like, society tells you have to have all these things and be all these things, and most of it, most men can't do all that.
And most men don't want to do all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It can be, it can feel like a lot of responsibility, especially if you didn't have anyone showing you that. If you didn't have a father in the home, or you didn't have an active father in your life, even if he was there.
Yeah.
Your model is something that is, maybe sits around and flips channels all day long.
You talk about that, and you're actually doing the right thing. For someone who didn't have, for my part, I didn't have a good male role model. My father is someone I'm not sure detest is the right word, but he's the I can't say that word. Antithesis. Antithesis. There we go. Because that's the first time I ever said that word out loud. But he's opposite of everything I want to stand for. He steals from everyone, family, friends. I believe he's a sociopath. He's a pathological liar. He's not a good man. Right. And growing up watching him, and saw him a couple times beat my mom. He's everything, the opposite of who I want to be.
Right.
And and the thing is, growing up with that, it's also, long as you go on your path of trying to find out who you are, but also you have that in the back of your mind. It's okay, be careful not to do these acts or take these actions because you don't want to be like your father.
Yeah, it can take you down that path you don't want to go down.
Yeah.
And you can be in a situation like you're talking about, like you grew up in, and you could have two brothers that grew up with a father like that, and one brother may mirror the exact same man, and he's going to say, well, I blame my father, and that's all I know. He taught it, I learned it from him, and that's just who I am. And the other brother can be the absolute opposite of that, and his same answer is, I blame my father. That's who he was, and I chose to break that cycle, and I wasn't going to be that man. So I had to be something different. And so, it's usually, and that's sort of where you're willing to accept that responsibility to become something and break that cycle, or you just stay in that place because you're not willing to confront that, or you're not willing to take that step, and you just go into that lifestyle because it's all you know, because you didn't bother to do anything to change yourself.
And just give anyone advice about this, and one thing I kind of learned from growing up is the best way to break that is to actually go into the world. Just burn the bridges, cut the ties from the shores, and really just go into the world and try to find out who you are. And just, be mindful about certain actions, certain behaviors you have, because there's some things that I picked up from my father. It took a couple of years to actually, break. And he has some good qualities too. He was a very charming man, which a sociopath, it probably is going to be very charming. But Yeah, there's certain things that you as an individual you may not be aware of because you're modeled by a person that's not a good role model. But going into the world and being kind of aware and being open-minded breaks a lot of those bad behaviors, and actually you grow from it too.
Yeah, absolutely. My father, not a bad man at all. Very good man.
Oh, good.
The only issue was after I was 7 years old, he wasn't there. And it was a divorce. And like I said, he's a great man. He's very much a business mentality. And work was his life. And he didn't do a whole lot outside of that. There were certainly, he had his own little things and stuff he did, but, very business minded. And he ran his own business. And I mean, there was a lot of, doing those things now, I can look back and say, man, I don't know how he did it. I understand.
Yeah.
Why it was so hard to be, everything for me as a 7-year-old boy. And, you've got the responsibility of other folks that their livelihoods and everything are depending on you and your business as well. So, I mean, I get a lot of that now, but due to the divorce, which wasn't, I also recognize that it wasn't 100% his fault. He didn't just say, I'm done and walk out. But, he could have done more to be a part of my life. And my mother kind of, even though I lived with her for the majority of that time as a youth, she then went to work and then she wasn't really there either. So I kind of grew up, I had a lot of family around because I grew up on a farm. And I had aunt, uncle, cousins, and
so you had
grandmother, grandfather.
That big support network, basically.
So I still had a lot of family around. So I still have a very family-oriented attitude, but that nuclear family was not really there like I needed it. But my father, and it's the one thing I think has saved me from going down the wrong paths in life was even though he might not have really tried to actively teach me a lot, I watched him. When I was around him, I watched him. And he's a CPA. And CPAs are, generally known to be unbiased and have integrity to a sense. But I don't think I've ever come across another man that I would say day in, day out displays a level of integrity that he does. And the people that work for him and around him, just his consistency and integrity are just, it's known throughout the area that he lives. And I respect the hell out of him for that. And I'm thankful for that. And it makes me say, well, I wish I would have had him there every single day, from 7 years old until, through that very formative time, that I could have, even in just watching him, I could have picked up more from him. But I think it's at that level of integrity that he carried, and that was my model. Just like I'm talking about, I want to be a good model for my daughter. If I had a son, I've got to show him what being a man is and how he needs to conduct himself. So I watched my father, and I tried to be like him in a sense. So that's one of the things that's kept me, I think, from, even though I make mistakes, I try to fix them and do what's right. Because I saw what that level of integrity was, and I said, well, where like if I had a father that drank or did other things, then, I might not have had that model, and I might not have taken those types of actions. So I think that a lot of the way he was really saved me from, probably going down a very bad path in life and kept me going on a different trajectory. But at the same time, because of all that, when I was turned 18, it was like, I'm going to college and it's not anywhere around here. I want to be far enough away so that I can be on my own. I can come home when I need to, on holidays and everything, but you guys nobody's going to show up. Nobody's going to bother me. And I can have my own life and be the black sheep if that needs be. But that's when getting into college, like you said, you got to get out and see and experience. And, I actually just wrote something about this, about, not having an okay life, just you get a job, you find something that's safe. It pays the bills, it keeps a roof over your head, a relationship that, I like this person. On a scale of 5 to 10, my attraction's a 6. It's enough to make you want to be, it's enough to make you want to be with them.
Yeah.
Like you like them, but it's not lighting a fire in you at the same time. And as men, I think as people in general, that's where we get stuck a lot of times. And this is a sidetrack. I'm like, it's something just triggers with me. You get stuck in a relationship a lot of times that your attraction level is good. You like this person. You enjoy being with them. It's a good time. But it's not an 8 to a 10 where you're just like, wow, man, this person just is amazing. And they light a fire in me, and I want to be something better because they are in my life.
And it's also mutual and reciprocal too, because then you're that person that like she's getting it too. Like, oh, I'm getting that fire from this guy. Yeah. Like I'm getting motivated because of this guy. And
that's what I aspire to in life, and I want that in not just in relationships, but in the things I do, the friendships I engage in, the career or job, my work, my passion. I want it to be like that. I don't want to earn a paycheck. That's why it's like, okay, well, I've done these things. I don't want to go work an investigator job or go do some other job and make a lot of money. That like, okay, then what? I'm not happy with myself. I'm not happy with where I'm at. I'm just kind of like, yeah, the work was fine, kind of thing. It doesn't mean that everything I do every day is not stressful or sucks, but I'm doing what drives me, and it gets me up every day, and I'm like, this is what we're doing, and I'm excited about it to an extent, of course. But I've gotten out, and I had that opportunity in college to get out and do things. And one of the first things that really opened it up for me was I became a part of a fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, which I never intended to be. I wasn't looking to be a part of anything like that, but I ended up playing like some backyard football out by where the dorms were, where we were staying with a bunch of guys, and I was hanging out with a couple of them, and they invited me to come out and be a part of stuff, and the next thing you know, I'm in a fraternity, and life spiraled from there. But within that fraternity, they have a philanthropy. The name's changed. They call it the Ability Experience now. It used to be called Push America, and it originated with people understanding the severely handicapped. That's Push.
Okay.
But the name has evolved into something else. They call it the Ability Experience now because it's about everyone's abilities, not necessarily people's disabilities. But they served people with disabilities. And a lot of what they started doing was building handicap accessible playgrounds and, various things to help bring inclusiveness to people, people with disabilities, and spreading awareness so that people don't treat them differently. Because most of them, they just want to be treated, like a human being, and not like, and that they belong and that they fit in. And I did a ton of work with that group, but one of their biggest things is called the Journey of Hope, which is a bicycling trip on a bicycle from, every year they do it. They just arrived in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, but they cycle from San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, to the U.S. Capitol building on bicycles.
Oh,
They do it every summer. They have 3 routes. When I did it, they only had 2. They had a north-south and a north route and a south route. Now they have a trans continental route. I think it starts up in the northeast or northwest and then comes down to D.C. A little different route there. But in 1997, I had the opportunity to be a part of this, and I signed up to be a part of the team, and you had to raise $5,000 for the nonprofit. And you got to do that on your own. As a 19-year-old kid, I got to go out and like fundraise $5,000. It's like, okay, yeah, that's simple.
$5,000.
I mean, it took me, a good 8 months or so to be able to do that. But I went to businesses and various places and people I knew. I mean, that's where you just get out. I mean, it's almost like beg, borrow, and steal. Hey, here, look, I'm trying to do this. Can you just please support me? Even if it's $5. You put a cuss jar in your house, and every time somebody cusses, they got to throw $1 in it. We made $200 off that. So you have to get creative. You got to find ways, and you got to learn how to engage people. I mean, I wasn't shy, but I wasn't outgoing.
Yeah.
In a sense, I was still, finding my voice, and that was kind of one of the things that started to. I'm passionate. I like this. This is something that is like, it's giving me a purpose to go out and. Why would I go raise money to do this? Well, it's because I want to be a part of something, and it gave me that opportunity to get out and start to find my voice and how to engage people. Like before that, I couldn't sit there and have this conversation with you now. Like I wouldn't even know what to say. I'd just be like, "Yeah, hi, I'm Trey," but so that's where starting to find your voice and be able to, and it's easy to do when it's something that you care about.
Yeah.
And it's like, this means something to me, and I really want to be a part of this. So it's like, it made it easy for me to talk about it. And then people felt that, and then people donated money, and I'm like, this is great. But, going through all that gave me the opportunity to ride a bicycle across the country. And every single day, we'd average about 75 miles a day. It takes 63 days to cross. It's not a straight line. It's like 2,900 something miles to go from coast to from one coast to the other. It's almost 4,000 miles on the trip. Because you go like to a certain path, and then you go south, or you might go north, and
you do that to avoid like certain.
Well, some of it's you're going to certain cities.
Okay.
And you're not just making a straight line, and there are actually a couple of days where it's like you go to one city, but the next city you go to, you're technically going west instead of east.
Oh, okay. So you do a little backtracking.
Might go southwest or northwest or something, and you're not always necessarily going directly across. And then you get like you come across to South Carolina, and you go up Highway 29, which is almost a northeast trajectory. So you're cycling a lot of miles, but you're not going very far east. So you ride a lot of miles, but I was able to do that, and I made the trip. I cycled every day but one in Virginia, where I just had gotten a little sick, and I had to miss a day because I just didn't have it to get on the bike and go. Doing that, it's not just the cycling. And in each city that we go to, we would meet with a group of disabled individuals that were there, and we might have a dance, or we might have a lunch or something with them, or we're at a park, and we're out there having a good time with them, and treating them just like we would anybody else. And we would bring out news crews and get stuff involved to show, and we would use the fact that here's a bunch of college kids, guys, dedicating their lives and their summers to help these folks. And it would bring media, and it would bring attention to the group, and it would help them with their efforts as well. So that was a lot of the purpose of it, is to help all these folks. And you do that at, 60-something cities along the way. Which can be pretty amazing. And you have so many experiences from that that has nothing to do with riding a bicycle or fundraising. And it's that human interaction. And it teaches you a lot of humility as well. At the same time, building up a slight arrogance, because look at what you're doing. So it's a humble arrogance.
Ego's like everything else. Like as long as it stays in check, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. But going through that, it kind of opened my eyes to the world. Before that, I'm just a kid from South Carolina. Yeah, I've gone to a couple places, but I haven't seen a lot. I haven't been to all these places. I haven't been out to San Francisco. And you're out there, and you're at a Hard Rock Cafe, and here's a homosexual couple sitting at a table across from you. Being from a farm in South Carolina, you didn't see that.
Yeah.
You're talking about the 90s. It's a little more acceptable these days, which is, I have no issue with, but it's just more like a culture. I was like, is that what I think it is? Like, I don't,
because you never seen it before.
Like, I didn't have an issue with it, but it just wasn't right there in front of me. And that's kind of, and that's where you talk about getting out and experiencing things. Now, there's a lot of my family who are still in that same place that I was when I was 18 years old, because they haven't gotten out. They haven't experienced anything else. So that's all they know. So they still have that same mentality. So if they were to see something like that now, they would have the reaction that I had 22 years ago. Was like, what? kind of thing. And that was sort of something that, you're experiencing all that, and it opened up my mind and the world. And, I was just a kid. I was mediocre at everything. I wasn't a great athlete. Made the baseball team one year, but not the next year, kind of thing. And when I played football, it seemed like I got injured constantly. So I never really got to play. And I didn't want to play because it was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is just not working for me. Apparently, I'm not doing something right. And I was a real skinny kid. It wasn't until I got to college that I,
you bulked up.
I put on my freshman 15 and, gained a little weight. And then suddenly I'm a little more athletic. But that was something that, I suddenly realized that I can do anything. Look at what I just did.
Yeah.
Just because it was something that I thought was great, and if I see something that I'm inspired by, I know I can do it because I did that. And it taught me how to I want something amazing in life. Well, if you want something amazing, then you've got to take a risk.
That's true.
You're not just going to sit there and amazing come knock on your door for you. Rarely. Could happen. It could happen.
Accidentally get the right lotto numbers.
But you're not going to be ready or prepared for it. And what happens to those people that get the right lottery number? They end up blowing it and losing it all.
Yep, this is true. Even did that study with homeless people where they actually give them a lot of money and see what happens, and they end up
right back where they were.
Yep.
Because that's what they know. A lot of times, and a lot of it is about expanding your mind. And once you've opened your mind to the possibilities, then you can't close it back. And that's kind of where I've been for the last 20-something years.
So you went from college, and what you study in college again?
I went to my initial degree was in finance, and then I got a second degree in accounting. Ended up being a CPA, working at my father's CPA firm.
Yeah.
He was a partner in the firm with several partners, but he was one of the lead partners there. But I worked 5 years there. But that was kind of that. My mind was open. There's so much more to this world. There are so many things that I'm capable of that I can do, and I'm sitting at a desk, basically balancing checkbooks and looking for fraud. And I'm like, okay, this is good. I like the people around here. It's comfortable. It's safe. I've got a little place over here of my own. Just bought a new car. It's like, okay, well, it's great.
Great. Like, this is safe.
I wasn't satisfied.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, okay. And, it's like literally a year ago, it's the summer and I'm out here doing, some auditing work. And I'm like, last summer, I was, in the middle of the Colorado Rockies riding my bicycle. Doing something amazing with great men. And I'm just kind of like, this is cool. It's just sort of like, you get that take me back kind of feeling in a sense. And, well, you can't go back, but you can go forward. I was trying to think of what I really wanted to do. And I knew it was going to break my father's heart to walk away from the firm. But at the same time, it was like I had to do what I felt I needed to do. And I had, during that time, like I didn't feel like it was, I was doing other things to fill that gap in life. I worked as a firefighter. I got fully certified as a firefighter.
Wow.
Which is a little different from a CPA.
Yep.
But it's a little bit different. But I was trying to fill that side of my life that I was purposeful and I was doing something. Being a CPA has its own things where you're helping people. People come to them a lot of times because they need help, fixing problems or whatever it is. But, as a 22, 23-year-old, you don't always see, that kind of aspect of something like that, especially if you're just doing grunt work.
Yeah.
But
how old were you when you were at?
That was between the ages of around 21, 22 to 26 or so.
Okay.
Where I worked there. But it was, kind of doing a lot of that. And at the same time, I started volunteering with Special Olympics. I was a swim coach for a youth. It started out, I helped start up their youth program in the county I was in South Carolina, and eventually took over the adults as well.
Oh, sweet.
Program, and I did that for a little while. But it's like I was trying to balance out it's like I was living a double life because I wasn't getting what I wanted out of my career. Like I wasn't passionate about it.
The firefighting?
It was just like I needed something that lit a fire in me. It kind of sounds weird. It's a firefighter, but something that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. So it's like I work during the day and I'm doing this, and when I would volunteer as a firefighter, but also when guys took vacation or wanted holidays off, type things. It's whether it's weekends or holidays where I wasn't working as a CPA, I'd work as a firefighter.
Yeah.
So I was trying to, like a fill-in and stuff. It wasn't my job, but I did it, like it was. And I had the certifications and everything and went to a ton of training for it. And that got into first responder stuff. Well, I had been like lifeguard in college and stuff. I went to school on the coast of South Carolina, and I lifeguarded during when I wasn't cycling, I was lifeguarding.
Yeah.
the different summers there. So I've always had that sort of first responder mentality and like helping and serving in a sense. And a lot of it derived from those first experiences of working with people with disabilities or other things like that. It's like I feel like I need to serve. And that's driven me my entire life, but you can do that in like a million different ways.
Yeah.
But those were a lot of the points that launched it, and it wasn't until that September 11th happened, in 2001. And I'm sitting out in some country. It was like a county in South Carolina, like county offices, and we were auditing the county itself. And I'm basically balancing the county's checkbook to make sure that they've got what they say they got. Mm-hmm. And nobody's, taking anything that they shouldn't have. And it's like the old school where they wheel in a TV, and it's like, look what happened, plug it in, and then here's planes flying into a building. And I'm just kind of like, I'm sitting here balancing the checkbook.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope. I was like, that was it. I was trying to force myself to be where I was. I was finding all these things, and I was like, no, I've committed myself to this. I've got to do it. For my father, for my family, for everybody that wants me here. And I'm like, no, I got to do what drives me. And within a couple of years, I was a Secret Service agent.
So how did you get through that process? Because I know that's a very long process.
Yeah, it took about 18 to 20 months to go through from the day I turned in my application until I was actually starting training. Mm-hmm. And it's a long process, and it's there would be like a couple months in between where you just don't hear anything. But you have to like submit the application, and you write a bunch of essays and stuff. KSAs, what are they called? Knowledge, skills, abilities, where you basically brag about all of where you've been and what you've done. Then you have an initial interview. Then that initial interview, if you get passed along, you have to take the it was called the TEA exam. I don't know if they still do this or not. The Treasury Enforcement Exam.
Okay.
Is what it's called. They used to be, before Department of Homeland Security was around, the Secret Service was under the Treasury because they were founded on protecting the financial infrastructure of the country.
Yeah.
Ironically, by Abraham Lincoln, the day before he was shot.
It
had absolutely nothing to do with presidential protection for a long time. It was all about counterfeit currency after the Civil War. And, that was a very long process, and you got to pass this like SAT style exam basically to say that you're not an idiot. Then you have to go to a panel interview with three agent supervisors, whoever sits on the panel at the location that you're getting hired out of. And if they pass you along, you have to and it's like, I think that was the longest period. Like, they passed me along, and it's like, no news is good news. You haven't got a letter saying no.
No news is good.
It took like 4 months, and then they called me up and was like, can you be here this week, in Charlotte for a polygraph? Sure. So you go and take a polygraph. And then you get through that, and then it was like, this long process going through background. I had to then submit like a lot more paperwork was a whole background thing of where you've worked for the last 8 to 10 years and where you've lived, and then they go back and verify all this stuff and basically figure out where you've been and talk to everybody that you put on there, and then people you didn't put on there, to try and make sure they're not hiring the wrong person. And yet they still let me in. After all that was done, they eventually one of the guys from the Columbia, South Carolina field office gave me a call. And actually, it was the week before I got the acceptance, the job offer. He reaches out to me, and I'd never met the supervisors in that Columbia office because I was being hired out of the South Carolina district. But I had met some other folks in the district, just not them. And they said, we'd just like to meet you, and talk to you. And I went down and met with the assistant special agent in charge there at the office. And he was like, are you prepared to be able to, have to move, pick up and move to Miami or, LA or New York or blah, blah, blah kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I've been in South Carolina my entire life. I'm looking forward to new experiences and getting out and going to other places. I was like, I'm looking forward to that opportunity. He goes, well, we've got a couple spots here in South Carolina as well. And I just quickly backed up. I'm like, South Carolina might not be that bad. I was like, it wouldn't be a culture shock, as going, taking, me out of, I had less tattoos and no beard and more clean cut look. But, it's like so I start backtracking. It's like, no, it's not bad. It's like you just have to, adjust to the career and not to the locality, environment you're in as well. So, no, South Carolina would be great. And he called me up a week later, same guy, and he said, I got good news and I got bad news. He said, what you want first? I said, go ahead and give me the bad news. He said, well, the bad news is that you're coming to work for us here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
I said, so he said, that makes the good news is, we'd like to offer you a job with the Secret Service. So I said, well, I'll take it, sir. I said, we both know I'll end up being there for about 5-6 years, and then I'll have to go on to somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's a soldier in a suit. There's a little bit of a militaristic feel to it, because you might work in everybody starts off in a field office for some 4 to 6 years or so. Things kind of change a little bit with budgets and how things have gone over the years, but it costs a lot to move people.
Yeah.
But then you would move to another position, or you go to D.C. and you start working at detail, or you move to another, you might start off in a small field office and then go to a New York and work in a large field office, or different types of things. They would move people around. Where FBI, ICE, and other IRS criminal investigators that are at the same, I would say, pay grade level, or same, they call them 1811s, which is the government's criminal investigator position.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what agency you're in, but we're the only ones that did force moves like that. That military of you're serving so long at this position, and then you
go on to the next one
in another location, and it could be overseas as well, overseas offices and embassies as well. So it's sort of a combination of that government agent / military lifestyle. And we did a ton of work with military on the protection side of things, dealing with the Air Force and Air Force One, and as well as transporting limos and things where, I'm flying on C-17, Globemasters, where you're just, you're in the jump seats, lying in the side of the C-17 with the limos in front of you. You lay down and sleep on that hard floor with your feet underneath the limo. And, I've made a couple of those trips, and that hell is its own sort of fun memory, just being able to do some of those things. But those types of things is, going into the service, I risked, it's like, I've got a safe job. I've got everything I need. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything I want. I want that. I want that life. I want to feel something like that. I want to go to these places, and I'm only going around this general area to be an auditor. Is that what I want to do for 40 years?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't. But it's good. It's safe. And a lot of people are okay with that. And that's okay. It's okay to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Some people can't handle that risk lifestyle. It's too much for them. They might have had a very traumatic life, and they need that safety and security just for stability. They need that stability. But for me, I may not offer a lot of stability because I'm very flexible and what I do and where I go and how I live. And I want to evolve. I want to feel things. I want to experience things. And that's been sort of that driving force. And I said, you know what? I've got to risk it. It may fail. I may fail. I may not get in. I may not last. But I've got to give it a chance. I went through the process and ended up going in that direction, and I was in the service for almost 10 years.
Damn.
And I ended up, I was a fraud guy. I had the accounting background, and it was the identity theft, bank fraud, mortgage fraud, because you had some other guys in there that might have been former military or law enforcement or other things, but I understood mortgage documents.
Yeah.
They didn't have that analytical background, which is nothing to fault them. Mm-hmm. I didn't have some of the law enforcement background. And I didn't, it's like I had to learn a lot of that stuff.
Basically, you guys complement each other.
Yeah, but I got to do a lot of different things, and when they needed someone to get into, they needed a local guy to do computer forensics. Mm-hmm. And this is really before Apple and iPhones and a lot of the mobile stuff. This is your laptops, computers, and things. And they said, "Do you want to go to computer forensics school?" And I'm just kind of like, okay. Well, it's like the other options are the state trooper, who we playfully referred to as the tar guard. Mm-hmm. And the other, option that could have gone was a former bomb tech from the Marine Corps. Kind of thing, and I was like, I think he would probably shoot a computer before he would actually try to do anything else. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, let's do it. Why not? So they sent me to training, and I became a computer forensics. I ended up eventually dealing with a lot of cases. I had to testify as a computer forensics expert.
Wow.
In court, and a couple of those cases were child pornography related, actually. Ooh. I had to see a lot of stuff, and a lot of those things really, because what happened, even though we were doing, our goal was with financial crimes and things like that, which were the majority of the forensics type cases I worked. We were on a task force with the state of South Carolina, their law enforcement agency, the State Law Enforcement Division, SLED it's called. And we were on a task force with them, and they got federal funding, and all the computers that local police departments would confiscate as part of cases or whatever, they would send there for forensics. And as part of that task force, I would work my Secret Service forensics cases, and then I would pick up some from them to help with their caseloads. And in those cases, like our Secret Service, we're always financially driven. Somebody's making counterfeit, somebody's making counterfeit checks, it's identity theft, it's this, it's that. And you're working those cases looking for those documents or anything, emails or anything, looking for that type of evidence. And then on the other side, it's homicides, arson, child abductions, child pornography. I had several cases that were like the To Catch a Predator stuff, where you're setting people, people are chatting with law enforcement officers. They don't, not me, I didn't involve in that side. Mm-hmm. But, I was from the federal side. I was the case agent on several cases where they think they're talking to a 12-year-old little girl, and they're trying to, meet with them for some form of sexual activity. And when they show up, they get to see me and a couple of other, guys.
Surprise!
We don't, and a very young-looking law enforcement female who might be there as well. So I got to engage in a lot of that stuff. But one of the things from the side of my standard gentleman side, and something that I got exposed to was that, not that I was exposed to pornography. I had certainly seen that before in life. Most men have, but I grew up in the non-internet time. The internet, we had AOL dial-up when I was in college, so I didn't grow up with a phone in my hand and access to that type of stuff, at the tip of my fingers 24/7. So, but I had seen that kind of stuff before. But when I got into the forensics, it was, if I wasn't having to look through it to determine the age of the people in this stuff, that it is. Being able to, it wasn't an everyday thing, but it was a consistent where you're, it's just part of your job. And I don't think about it in a sense. I'm not sitting there getting aroused by all this stuff and I'm like, oh, awesome porn. But it's my job, and I'm trying to, you're having to click through videos of pornography to make sure it's not your standard pornography on the front and the back, but they've clipped it and inserted child pornography in between to avoid, so that they can trade it.
So you will have to watch the whole video.
I watched the whole thing because you could spend days on end just looking at one computer because there's so much stuff that could be on there. You just never know. Mm-hmm. But you're trying to just, you might pull up a video and you'll click through, several points in it to make sure, okay, nope, don't need to worry about that one. But there were a handful of times where it was, a lot of child pornography. And I saw a lot of that type of stuff, and you can't unsee that once you've seen it. And there are a lot of other things that not just, normal pornography, but all the other stuff that's out there where you get into, the the 50 Shades of Grey stuff.
Oh, the BDSM.
Yeah, get into a lot of different things, or bestiality. I've seen it. I've seen it all. And I wasn't looking for it. Like, I didn't go out there looking, so I wonder about this. I'm curious. Let me go see. It's like, I saw it. I can't unsee it, but it's back there. It's back there in my brain, and it's been probably last time I really looked at that stuff has been over 8 years ago. And most of it's kind of filtered out, but every now and then, I'll something will kind of kick back or remind me of something, and I just kind of like, my head will shake, and I'm like, whoo, I don't want to think about that. But it's kind of one of those things that when it comes to pornography and how young men are exposed to that type of stuff today, and how your life can be controlled by pixels on the screen, I'm not saying pornography is a bad thing. It can certainly, it has its purposes and uses. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to act like I don't ever look at it or have never looked at it. But it's just like any other type of addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or anything. Too much of it can be a very bad thing for you.
Yeah, of course.
And it can get to where, because when you're dealing with pornography, just like heroin or something, it's kind of like, okay, well, I enjoyed that. That was cool, but you're not going to go back and watch the same thing again.
That's true.
Then you're looking for something else, and then something else. And okay, well, then this isn't doing it for you anymore, because now that's your normal. So then you escalate a little bit. And now you're looking at, and next thing you know, you're looking at all kinds of strange, whether it's fetish stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. And not that all those things are wrong. People have their likes and dislikes, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it can get to the point where it's controlling your life. And if you're married with kids, and then your wife and kids leave to go to the grocery store, and you run into the room to jump on your computer because you got an hour of free time, it's controlling your life. It's dictating what you're going to do in life.
Yeah, see,
and you're hiding it.
Yeah. Well, I'm single, and it's like, recently I had to tell myself, like, I need to slow down on the watching the porn shit. It's like the difference if you're married, but like when you're single, it's like, maybe I need to stop for a while.
Yeah, I've technically been single for about 5 years, and I've dated quite a good bit. Mm-hmm. And I've had people in my life for periods of time there. Mm. But I mean, and a lot of that really results from a desire for intimacy and a loneliness. And for that brief moment, you don't feel alone, or you're feeling some form of intimacy because you're feeling physical pleasure in some sense. But when it's over with, then it's gone, and you're right back where you were, or worse sometimes. And that's what draws you right back, because you're like, okay, that's gone. I want it again. I need more, because I'm not getting it from anywhere else. You're
substituting something that needs to be real.
Yeah, and it's a lot of times it's just that need for intimacy, that need for something in your life to fill what you don't have. And the times that I wouldn't say it's been prominent in my life, but it's been a part of my life, it's always been when I'm single. If I'm, in any kind of like real relationship, or even like I'm dating consistently, mm-hmm. It's never really thought in my mind to go look at anything pornographic.
Yeah,
because I'm fulfilling that desire, that need. It's being fulfilled. But if I go through, a period of a month or so where it's like I'm not
a dry spell,
or I'm doing, maybe I'm traveling,
mm-hmm.
or I'm out and about, and I'm not dating, I'm not looking for anything, there's nothing there, and then you're in the hotel room with 2 hours to kill, and you're like, well, okay, kind of lonely in here, and that's. And I would say most times if I engage in any pornography at all, it's kind of like that, but that sense. But anytime I've been in any type of relationship, it's not really part of my life. But I also recognize, like anything, that it can control my behavior, and I won't let it. Knowing that if I go down this road, that it can take me to here, I just like, you know what? Yeah, I've got that time, but I've got other things that I can do.
Yes.
And I go find something else to do. I was like, I know why I'm feeling this way. I know why I feel this desire to look at this, or to do that, or even to reach out to somebody to talk to, a female or something. It's because I'm feeling alone. Mm-hmm. Something doesn't feel right with me, and I need to feel that. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what? How about you go over here and work on something? You got something over here you can do. Go do that, and just get your mind thinking about something else, and then you go off and go do that.
Yeah, it's about like, well, it's not all about being self-aware. It's like, And a little bit, it's not that bad, but it's like what you said too. It's just like any type of alcohol, drugs, food. It could be
Too much of a good thing
Yeah.
can still destroy you. I mean, there are people like I'm into fitness. I'm a certified personal trainer as well. One of the many things.
One of many things.
Working on nutrition certification stuff too. But all these things, like I get these things because I'm driven to make myself better, and it's like I want to know, so I get myself certified, and then you know what, I can use this to help other people. Or it's like I know all these things, I might as well take this test over here, get my certification. That way, I can use that, and people, you know, because I'm not just some random dude who's like, yeah, I can help you work out. No, I'm certified, and this is a program, and this is how you do it. You know, there's something that backs it up. And I'm very much I've always been sort of about self-education and learning as well. But in fitness, you'll see people that throw themselves in fitness, and a lot of times it's, you know, they've gone through some sort of personal tragedy or something, and they'll get into the gym, and that's their escape. It's their escape from the reality that they're in. And a lot of times that's after a heartbreak and a relationship ends or something. And they go into that because they have time on their hands, nobody's around, you know, or whatnot, and they end up into fitness. Some people turn to alcohol and drugs, you know, as that escape. You know, I've got friends who have left relationships, went to the bars and strip clubs, and then they lose custody of their child because they became a drunk and they're blowing all their money on strippers, and then it gets pointed out in court. When I went through a divorce, I said, I'm going to take the highest road possible. I'm not going to get down here mudslinging. I'm not going to do this. And I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I'm not going, you know, I would have friends say, hey, let me take you out for a drink. I'm like, nope. I was like, you want to hang out? That's fine, but I'm not going anywhere near alcohol. Not that, and I was like, I don't even want to put myself into the position of where I start turning to something like that.
Smart. Very, very smart.
But there are people who, you know, turn to fitness and things like that, and then they overdo the fitness to the point of where they get injured. They injure their bodies. They hurt themselves, sometimes permanently, because maybe they don't know what they're doing. They don't get a trainer or something like that to help them work on form. And next thing you know, they're trying to lift too much, and you know, maybe they tear a muscle or, you know, tear out cartilage of their shoulders or something like that. And you know, maybe they're doing CrossFit, like throwing themselves around. I couldn't even think of doing it. I was like, that CrossFit's an injury waiting to happen for me. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that.
Yeah, I did CrossFit for a little bit, and
some of the CrossFit, I'm like, it's almost like overdoing stuff. I'm like, that's just.
Well, I still do some of the exercises because some of the workouts are pretty good, but I'm not doing all that stuff like the heavy weights and do as many as you can. Like, no, I'm not. That's not the proper way of doing that.
No. You know, I'm more about, you know, having a structure to it and making sure, like when I design my own programs, when I've helped some folks do it, I'm like, you know, there were some programs I did that were 6 day a week, but they were shorter ones, and it's, you know, for like a 6 week period of time, but don't overdo it. You know, then after that period, you're going to take a rest, and we're going to do this. And, but most of the times that you know, I'm not trying to get abs. I'm just trying to stay healthy. I'm 41 years old. I'm not trying to see if I can bench 225, you know, so many times and, you know, have ripped abs. It's like, I just want to be fit. You know, I don't want to be out of shape and a piece of crap and feel like it. Well, you know, so
fit and functional.
But most of my workouts are 4 days a week. You know, at least 2 rest days, and on those days, just be active, do something. Don't just sit around.
Go for a walk.
You know, get out, go for a walk. If you're playing basketball or doing this or doing that, but you're active, but you don't have to be in there lifting weights every single day.
No.
I mean, I think you can take anything to an extreme and it become an addiction and be bad for you. Even if it's something like, you can take nutrition to an extreme as well. I mean, you can take some sort of diet plan or whatever, and that's how you become anorexic.
Bulimia.
You know, something like that. So that is an eating disorder. Anything that can start off as good and positive can become an addiction and be something bad.
That's true.
It just depends on how you handle it and how you deal with it. And those are a lot of things that I try to, you know, help people see, because they look at it, it's like, oh, drugs and alcohol are bad or everything like that. And I can certainly say that I've never done any type of illegal drugs, but and people will tell me who've been around a lot, it's like, you could probably use like some marijuana, or at least like you don't have to get I don't even some of the medical marijuana, so you're not getting high, but just something that's just gonna let you chill out and relax. Because my mind is 24/7, like it doesn't settle down, and it's something just to help you chill out, at night or something to relax. Because I'm going, and I get energy in the evenings, and I'm like, I need to set an alarm because I need to go to bed before 2 a.m.
Set the alarm to go to bed.
Yeah, and that's the way I can be sometimes.
Well, let's go back to the Secret Service part. Like, because before we started talking, you mentioned that you had a little altercation with someone.
It wasn't so much of an altercation. God, I'm trying to remember what year this was, but it was when the Miami Heat won their first championship.
Okay.
With LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm.
They won their first championship, that summer, and then it was like that January, February time frame where they came to the White House to visit. I did not know they were going to be at the White House that day to meet. President Obama was there at the time. I'm thinking this would have been around. I think it would have been January or so of 2012. Like they would have won maybe 2011 championship or something. But nonetheless, they were at the White House visiting. They will go around and do a tour, and then they'll meet with the president later. I was on the complex working at the Treasury building. I was working with the Treasury Secretary at the time, Jack Lew. But he was, every single day we worked with him, he was over in the West Wing, because he would go and meet with the president multiple times a day or meet with other staff or other people around there. When he went over there, we went with him. Somebody from his detail always had to be with him, because if something goes terribly wrong, he's got to look to somebody that's going to get him where he needs to be. And you get him there, and then he goes where he needs to go, and then you stay behind. You're not that important. But I was frequently over in the West Wing, and you worked with a partner. And we would take turns, so that you're not having to stand over. If he's over there for hours on end, you might rotate out every 30 minutes to an hour, so that somebody's there with him, but you're not just standing there in the pressure cooker that is even as an agent being over there. You're around a lot of supervisors, agent supervisors, a lot of political staff, and it's like, I'm going to hang around here, but get me out of here as soon as you can. It's cool to be here. That's awesome, but I don't want something to happen or me to do something or say something that's going to come back.
They had the spotlight.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. But there was one morning. It was probably 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just walking, and it's in the basement of the White House, and we walk through the East Wing, and then it goes from the East Wing goes into a little foyer where you kind of make a right turn, and then you have to make a right turn, then a left turn to go into the basement of the mansion. You walk through the basement of the mansion over to where the colonnade is that the president walks out going into his office, the West Wing. But on the basement of the White House is where the China room is and all these other little areas. And it's not living quarters, and it's not like the where they hold state dinners and things like that in the main level, and then the sleeping quarters are on the top level. But we are, I'm walking from, through the East Wing. I make the turn. There's hardly anybody ever, in the morning times or whatever. There might be a couple of staffers, another agent or two might be around there, depending on where the president might be in the building. But I take a right out of the East Wing, turn into the foyer. And as soon as I go, I'm like cutting the corner to take that left turn to walk in through the basement of the White House. Right, the China room's right there, and I turn that corner, and I was about to say I was face to face with LeBron James, but I was like face to chest, face to chest, because I'm 6 foot tall, and he's 6'9", I think. At the time I'm about 210 pounds, and he's like 250 or 260 something. So I mean, even though he may look slim, whatever, he's a big dude. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm like, eye level to his shoulders. But I'm literally less than a foot away from, we are in each other's personal space. And, from, years of training and and experience, my first reaction was to create space.
Yeah.
You know, when so you're trying to create space that you can defend yourself or take action or whatever it is you need to do. So the first thing I did was I took my left hand with my palm open and I pushed right into his chest and pushed him backwards. And I pulled my right hand back like I was ready to punch him right in the face. Like, what's going on here? What's happening? Because nobody's, I'm not supposed to turn the corner and anybody be here. And then I kind of looked for a second, and I kind of looked off, and I see folks in the distance. He had walked away from the group and was walking backwards with his phone in his hand. He was sending a text message or something. But he had stepped away from the group, so he was by himself. Just kind of not paying attention to where he was going. And I look off in the distance, and I kind of see behind him, I think the guy was, I can't remember his name, they called him Birdman. He was like a center. He was a white dude with spiked hair, tattoos down his neck, and he's wearing a suit. And I just kind of look, and I'm like, I see him, and then I look in front of me, and it's like split seconds. And I see LeBron James, and I look up, and I see him, and I kind of, and it processes real quick. I said, Miami Heat.
Miami.
I was like, oh shit. This is like 2 seconds it takes. And I just kind of like lower my hands a second, and I'm like, Mr. James, how you doing?
Mr. James.
Mr. James. And he just kind of, he held both his hands up.
He's like, oh man.
He's like, whoa, because I startled him, and I got in his personal space just as much as he got in mine. And he stuck his hand out. He was like, my bad, man. And I shook his hand, and I was like, Mr. James, I just need to go around this way right here, and kind of pointed around to his side. I said, I've got to go down this area, and I just kind of like walked on past. It was like, holy shit, did that just happen? And that was the time I almost punched LeBron James in the White House.
I almost punched LeBron.
Now he may not remember that.
I think
it's a point in my mind that it's kind of like, and people will tell me, I bet you got really, crazy stories or this or that from all the things you've done, and I'm like, not really. I don't think so. And then I'll come up with something like, that's probably one of the, because it's of who it was. Was more of the crazier sounding ones. But I'm just like, nah, it was a Tuesday.
Well,
that was normal in a sense.
What would you say is the craziest case you worked on?
Oh, case? God. Well, we've had a few of them. There was one case when I was in South Carolina where a guy was, it was sort of like a mortgage fraud, but it was called down payment assistance companies. He had, these were companies that would help people, like they qualified for loans, but they didn't have enough money to make their down payments.
Okay.
And they might be in a certain situation because of that, so they would ask these companies to help get involved with them, and they would sort of work with buyers to basically make it work. I can't imagine why the mortgage, industry kind of had its, this is sort of before that whole time, and mortgage fraud was a big deal, and this is like 2007, so it was right before the market crash kind of thing. See, there's all kinds of crazy things out there, but so it wasn't they weren't real mortgages going on. This guy was creating these fake sales and things like that and requesting down payment assistance because he knew how to manipulate these companies to give him money for down payment assistance. And the way it worked is they would get a fee out of it, but they would provide money for the down payment. And then once the transaction was all done, they got repaid through like the seller instead of the buyer or something like that. But he had done this to the tune where he was running a Ponzi scheme where he's taking, the new money he's getting in from one to the one that he had gotten months before, and living off of them. Well, that can only go so long, because eventually it's going to catch up with itself because there's not actually anything going on. You're just basically robbing from these people slowly. He's using all the money to live his life, getting limos, flying to New York, and taking people out, buying a car. And then when he gets new ones, he's paying the old ones back. But he keeps creating like new companies and all these things so he can continue to do more and more of them to get more money to come in because he has to pay the old ones back or he won't get more money. And it just becomes this cycle. And it gets convoluted and hard to explain. And these down payment companies aren't the best victims either.
Best victims.
Because, they're trying to make money off of, kind of a little situation there. And, it was a mess. But he had done it to the tune of like $2 million.
Oh, shit.
Buying cars and living it up. Living the good life out of it. And I showed up to his office one day. Now these things is starting to come back. I showed up to his office after I indicted him on the fraud charges. I showed up to his office because I indicted him. They made a press release. The U.S. Attorney's Office gave a press release about because it was when I indicted him. That was when the crash was starting. They wanted the press to show that they were attacking mortgage fraud. So I'm like, whatever, release your press statement. And I get a call from a bank investigator. Then, an hour later, this guy's working in my bank. I need him out.
What do you mean that he was working in your bank?
He was working in like a mortgage approval area of a bank, and he's got access to all these identities and stuff and all this stuff. So suddenly I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, well, he's like, I'm gonna fire him, but I was like, so I went in and met with him. The bank investor got his bag, searched his bag, and found documents they'd printed out with people's identities and all their information on it.
Wow!
And he had gotten the job because he had taken the identity of a University of Houston football player that he had taken his identity because it was the same name. He had the exact same name, which was an odd name too. I was like, how did you find somebody with the same name? He took over his identity and used that identity to get the job because he had a criminal record and wouldn't have been able to get a job under providing his own credentials. And he got hired through like a temp agency kind of thing. So he kind of like was able to filter his way in to where he's working in a bank and has access to all this stuff with a known criminal history where he's not allowed to work in financial institutions. I presented him with the indictment and let him know. I was like, if you try and skip town, I'm going to find you. You know where you're going to go because I know that you're a runner. Here's where you need to be in court, and I need the keys to your car because I've confiscated it. I confiscated his car and had it forfeited that day because he bought it with illegal proceeds of crimes. And I took it was like a BMW 740 something. It was a really expensive BMW, and I took his car from him that day.
Give me a car.
Like, give me a car. But the funniest part of that, and I had forgotten about this. This is like one of those stories. It's like, I don't have any good stories. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's coming back to you.
We showed up at his court appearance. And a female shows up with him. But during that time, I had time to look at that kid's identity that he stole. Like, how did he get this job? So I find that he's committed this other crime of identity theft with this kid. And I got in contact with the kid and found out, all the identity stuff and all his information. I went to those credit cards and stuff that he had opened up in this kid's name, and I saw where he purchased a diamond ring from, some jewelry store. And I contacted the jewelry store, and they had a picture of the ring and all this stuff because they had all that kind of stuff documented. It was thousands of dollars. So I actually had a picture of the ring on file and just had it with me in my work file. And he shows up to his first court appearance. This female's with him, wearing a nice shiny engagement ring. And I looked over at one of the U.S. Marshals. I was like, don't let that woman leave this place because she is carrying stolen property.
Yeah.
And I took the ring off of his fiance's finger.
Oh, my God.
I have never felt better or more of an asshole in my life as I did at that moment.
Hey, ma'am, come over here. Come over here. Give me a hand.
I was like, I think I might have ruined that guy's life. She didn't show up to any other court appearances after that, so I don't know if she sort of, ditched him at that point in time or realized that he was a fraud or what it was. He was clearly a smooth talker of some sort. She was an attractive woman, but no, it was. I caught a lot of flack. Some of the guys in my office and all that. I mean, it's hilarious, but they were like, "You took the ring off of the woman." I was like, "What was that?" And I was like, honestly, I felt a little bad about it. I was like, "Man, first of all, why would you show up with that?" I was like, "That's brazen to begin with." But I was like, "They're stolen property. You may never see that woman or that ring ever again. It was right there, and I knew it. And what was I supposed to do? Just let her walk out?" knowing that there's, I don't know, $5,000 worth of property I can recover right now for this kid who had his identity stolen from this piece of shit. And I was like, sorry, dude, that ring's coming. You're not leaving here with that ring on your finger. And I've got the case right here and the picture of the ring. So you can't tell me it's not. And we know what you've done. You've been indicted on this stuff. So
I got your car. I got your ring.
Yeah,
I took your fiance.
Well, no, I think he is still in. Nah, that would have been about 2008, 2009. So he's probably he got 10 years. So he's in federal prison. You don't get
parole.
You don't get parole in federal prison. You get 10 years. You serve 10 years. So he's either getting out 2008, 2009 right now. So he's about his time out. So I'm not worried about him looking for me or anything like that. I don't think. I don't think he wants to be anywhere near have anything to do with me. No, but that was an interesting story. That was just kind of one of my cases. But when I was I worked for about 5.5 years in the Columbia, South Carolina field office. That was my first tour of duty, so to speak. And then I gotten involved in the cyber crimes, computer forensics, as well as cyber crimes, which we got into the sort of that the criminal underground, online underground, where they're buying and selling identities and credit cards and all that stuff on the black market, where you're using confidential informants that you've arrested for stuff, and they're part of these groups, and they might be administrators of websites and stuff.
Yeah.
You get them in there, and you're now taking over their website, and you're building cases against and identifying who these people really are, and not just these online nicknames, but tracking them, tracking down who they are. And I got started in that, and that led me to I spent almost 3 years in cyber intelligence at the Secret Service headquarters, and kind of, I guess, to give some sort of background. Secret Service has about 3,500 agents, typically. I don't know if anything has changed in the last 5 years since I've been out, if they kind of bumped up any of the numbers, but compared to like FBI has like some 20,000. It's not a huge organization. It's like Army compared to Marine Corps.
Yeah.
If you look at like FBI to Secret Service, it's like we're going to do more with less, and kind of we're not trying to do everything. Over here, we're specializing in these things. And we're going to do, more with less. We're going to try and do it really well, and not try to like investigate every crime available in the country. We just kind of stick to what we know and know it really well. But out of that group, maybe 10% of that get involved in the computer forensics and cyber crimes. When you're dealing with financial crimes, there's a lot of times that nowadays there's a cyber or computer part of it. Just because somebody might, it's all going through electronic, devices or whatever now. And, so I saw that when I was younger, and I was like, yeah, getting the computer stuff, it's, people aren't printing currency on a big, printer setup, and they're doing it on computers and stuff. So if you're going to teach me how to do that, then okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. But only about 10% of the agents would go down that path. And the cyber intelligence, there's only, at any given time, there was only 10, roughly 10 agents in that division. So it's like 1% of that 10% go into that cyber intelligence arena. And we're working out of our headquarters office, and that's where like what I was doing in my field office was I was focusing on regional and U.S. stuff and what's happening in my region. And at the headquarters, I'm focusing on what's going on in the world. Because these, when Target is hacked and Home Depot is hacked and all the credit cards are stolen. When I first got in there, it was one of the first big ones, which was TJX companies and Marshalls and all. And that was, I don't know if some folks remember that now, but because that's going probably close to 10 years now when that one happened. But that was like the first big one. And some of these other ones have happened since then. But just where they're coming in and they're stealing, hundreds of thousands of credit cards and type of information to then use to commit fraud. Well, those are the cases we worked. And when you see something like that come across, an announcement that this company's been breached and law enforcement or Secret Service is investigating, well, it was me and my group of 10 guys. We're investigating it. And but we do it as a team. There might be a lead investigator, but we all might take part in some of those things and at certain aspects of it. But that during that 3-year period, you're working a lot of those, they're high-profile type cases in a sense, and also you're tracking people all around the world, because people who are breaching these companies and going into that, they're not in the U.S. We refer to it as Russian speaking, and it's like the former, the Eastern Bloc, the former, Soviet countries, as well as Russia, because that's where they have immunity in a sense. They don't either have laws to prevent them from doing this, or they're like, as long as you're not touching the motherland, we don't give a crap what you're doing. So a lot of these guys are able to get away with, or they think to get away with it because they're not
in the country
involving themselves. I mean, they're like, well, so what if the Secret Service or FBI or anybody's investigating this? I live in St. Petersburg, Russia. What the hell are you going to do about it? Nothing. They don't even know who I am. But we built, 20 years worth of intelligence work. Every time a criminal is arrested in the U.S. or abroad, we're getting copies of hard drives, and we've got intelligence analysts who are picking they're all Russian speaking, some native speakers, and they're pulling the information out and bringing it together. And it's like, this guy with this nickname, well, guess what? 10 years ago, here's a picture of him standing with his car with his license plate, because he was dumb enough to post that when he first got started. Now we know how to track him, because we're able to start getting in and finding ways of where we find out who they are in real life. And we start doing those things, and we're able to put a name to the person behind the keyboard. And then once you do that, you can start tracking where they are. And when you make $1 million off of a hack, and you live in St. Petersburg, Russia, or someplace that's just cold and miserable, you're going to go someplace that's U.S. friendly for a vacation. You're going to go to someplace on the coast of France and stuff like that. And once we get that travel advisory, we send the warrant out. And next thing you know, you're sitting in a French prison waiting extradition to the U.S. I can't really get into too much of those. I feel like I can't, but in some of them they all kind of run together, and some of them were very public, and some of them nobody ever knew that these companies were hacked.
Oh,
so it's kind of, and then you start thinking, I was like, was an announcement ever made of that one? I just need to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, it's like,
so you just don't. It's like, these things happen. Companies were hacked. Bad things happen. We caught them. But we were able to arrest a lot of guys who otherwise would think that they're untouchable, because we're able to track people online and pick up some of their movements. And one guy even posted. We caught one guy in the Netherlands because he posted a picture on his Facebook profile, and this guy from Russia. They also have there's a site similar to Facebook, which is like the Russian version of Facebook. And they post on there, and they you post your location. We posted his location, and here's a picture of him at the Amsterdam sign, at the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam, which we had a task force with them, and I spent months in the Netherlands working with them and helping build this task force and the relationship, so that we get on the phone. I've got an agent with the Secret Service working on that task force right now. Here's the warrant. Go pick him up. We're calling around the hotels, and we blind called hotels. Is such and such available? We're just trying to ring the room. Okay, well, guess what? We start calling around. We find the hotel he's in. Cold calling hotels. But it's like 2 a.m. there, where it's in our afternoon here. And we don't want to wake him. But, okay, well, we just found out he's in this hotel because the front desk said,
he's here.
Basically that he's here. And then we got our partners there involved with a Secret Service agent on the ground working with him, and they were there when he came out of the hotel room to give him with his warrant. The funny thing about that one was he had a friend with him. The friend was a guy that we had been looking for so long, and he was part of a large breach, one of the first ones we had gotten into. But he was hard to track. But he just happened to be with the wrong person at the wrong time. And when you put the screws on the one guy who had a wife and kids, that's him. That's who you. That's, you want to work with us? You want to see your kid grow up? That's him. He's the man. He's the one you're looking for. and it ended up basically testifying against him, and making sure that not only we had the information, but it was the verification that yes, that is, and we were able to detain him and arrest somebody that we had been looking for, but never were able to track or find. Wrong place, wrong time. So, there's been a lot of interesting stuff that's kind of going on, and those are kind of some different, cases, I guess, in a sense that I worked, and not only were necessarily my cases, but I was involved with them, in one way or another.
Well, what was the decision what was the situation that you decided to get out of it?
Well, that's when life happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of moving along on life, and you think you've got everything figured out, and you built all the things you wanted to build. You got the great job, you got a wife, you got a child, and you've got the house and the car and everything, and then life just happens. And it seemed like overnight the relationship with my wife just fell apart. There had been a lot of things building up between our intimacy and a lot of things, complications from her life and her pregnancy, like medical complications. And I went through a period where I was trying to deal with a couple things medically as well. Sleep and rest issues and stuff like that. And we just kind of had our own independent struggles. And we really didn't, I don't think we were really supporting each other through that. We were just trying to figure out what the hell was wrong, what we were struggling with, and not really supporting the other one. Eventually, things just kind of fell apart. On her side, it kind of went sideways. She always had a little bit of a paranoia about her, to a sense. She had been former law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
She was a reserve police officer. She didn't work full time, but she worked, usually 20 hours a week or so. She would work volunteering as a fully trained police officer. That's how we connected.
Mm-hmm.
We had sort of that in common, and a lot of other things in common. And but there were a lot of things, and I didn't see them as red flags previously, but because I'm like, well, she's been in law enforcement, so she's seen things, she's experienced things, so she's looking at the neighbor's house, and it's like, I think that guy's dealing drugs, kind of stuff, or she's over here buying drugs or something because this same car keeps coming back, and she just walks out and talks to him for whatever, and then they leave. It's kind of like, okay, sure thing. A lot of stuff like that, and looking back, I can kind of see a lot of things, but I think that's something that happened to her in her past, before me, that she struggled with, and maybe she had gotten dealt with a lot of it, but then we're living in Washington D.C. at this time, where we met and married, and our daughter was born in South Carolina, and I'm now working at our headquarters and working in D.C. and she was on her own a good bit, and at the home by herself with our child, trying to help raise our daughter, and I'm traveling to the Netherlands and doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And I think we were not where we needed to be for each other. And I know that I wasn't the man I needed to be for her as well. And I freely admit that, I was not that man. I didn't even know what that man needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to be and thought I was. It's like I was a good man, but I don't know that I was being, the best man for her.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't truly supporting her and being what she needed. I was trying to support the overall family and future, but not necessarily what she needed right at that time. And I wasn't recognizing the issues that she was having. And I think I just let them go and sort of added fuel to them at the same time, because I didn't put a stop to it. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. What if I just need to do this? If you just, no need to make waves. We don't need to start an argument over something. It's like, okay. I just kind of acquiesced, and that was where, some of the beginnings started to fall apart. And I had flown her over to Amsterdam, or over to the Netherlands when I was working one time. Took her to Amsterdam, and she was able to see like the red light district, where where all this stuff is, stuff is legal. prostitution and all these things. And, she started, wondering if I was cheating on her and things like that. And a lot of stuff. And, in the end, and I don't think, we had lost a little bit of our intimacy, and I was, struggling to deal with some of that from a sexual nature. It's like I wanted to be with my wife. I wanted to have these things, but I wasn't being the man I needed to be to entice that with her. Mm-hmm. And I kind of struggled with that, and trying to be that man. And I felt like I kind of screwed that up in a sense by not being who I needed to be as a man, and in some ways sort of setting her off in a sense that I didn't realize I'm, pulling up something, that might be from her past or setting off something. And she started wondering if, if I'm cheating on her, if I'm doing these things, or, and it just began with her, it began to snowball. And she started, looking and asking me about our daughter and stuff. And in the end, end up being accused of, cheating on her and engaging with prostitutes and molesting her daughter.
What?
And she even claimed that I physically abused her, which I never did any of those things. And we had separated, and I left the house. But she, continued to. My problem was I didn't stand up to her when she started to do a lot of these things. Where I'm that stand-up guy as an agent and all these things, but when I came home, I was like, whatever you need, kind of thing. Just, we don't need to make a big issue out of this. Just, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need, I'll fall on any sword. I'll do whatever. Let's fix this.
Yeah.
And that was the wrong attitude to have. And I just, kept giving into her, and it just began to snowball. And I finally had to stand up to her and like, I've never done any of this stuff. This is not who I am. And she even got physically, there's several times where she physically hit me. And she had law enforcement training where she knows how to, someone who is twice her size, you hit them with a palm heel strike to the temple, you can stun somebody that's 200 pounds.
Yeah. Or in the nose.
And you don't break your hand. There was the temple, and the other one was to the bridge of the nose. And it felt like for a day or so my nose was swollen. I was like, I hope she didn't break my nose. And I just stood there and looked at her. I was like, are you fucking crazy? Like, what the hell? Like, I mean, I didn't even so much as raise my hand. But it's like, at the same time, well, why didn't you report that to the police or anything? I was like, I'm a 6 foot tall, 200-something pound Secret Service agent. My wife just hit me. She's accusing me of all these things. You think I'm going to go to the police?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And I don't even know. Like, she's just all over the place. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's like, do I believe her? Like, I'm not this person, but she's like, where's all this coming from? And I'm like, just make it stop. Make it stop. What do I need to make it stop? And, but when it didn't stop, and because I kept, trying to do whatever, and, whatever you need me to do. You need me to go, I mean, she'd call me up and, just to yell at me in the middle of the night. And then she would ask me to go get stuff at the grocery store and bring it. Just simple stuff. And I was just like, whatever you need, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I got it. And I was acting like that. And I just wasn't being, like, I just completely gave up all my masculinity. And it was like I completely gave myself up for her. And it was like, and a lot of that was, I can't not have, my daughter has to have a father in the home. So whatever I've got to do to be able to be in the home, be her father, and keep this marriage together, I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care about myself. I will sacrifice anything. And that's been a battle for well over 5 years now. But she's kind of taken that to an extreme in terms of when it came to the Secret Service. She would this has happened numerous times, and she took our daughter to a child psychologist and had my daughter talk about how I abused her. And then this person then reports it to the authorities because they're mandatory. If somebody comes in and says this, they have to by law, or they can get in trouble and lose their licenses and stuff. So there's been numerous times where she's done this, where she goes to, whether it be a pediatrician or a child psychologist who knows nothing about what's going on and says, here's my daughter, I think this has happened, and my daughter will say, my daddy did this or that or something.
Your daughter was
my daughter was
coaching.
like 3 or 4 years old, 4 years old at this time.
And she coached her.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that she says, it's like kids don't say those things.
Mm-hmm.
They repeat those things.
Yeah.
And I've gone through now 6 child abuse investigations in 3 states, in Virginia and South Carolina and Florida. And there's nothing to them. Mm-hmm. The police have been involved on several occasions because they're investigating it from a crime. And I'm literally like, I volunteered for psychological evaluations. I've had a couple of them, and they're like, nah, he doesn't fit any type of behavior associated with that. My daughter's had a psychological evaluation, and nothing, shown up there that made any sense of. It was like, well, maybe he could have done something, but it's just as possible that anything that my daughter says is because she's been told too many things. So they basically say, could be either way. Mm-hmm. And I understand that, I'm very open about this stuff, and there are people I can tell this to, and anybody who might listen to this might be like, you know what, I wonder if he did do something.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me to accept at first, to be even accused of something like that. It was like, I would rather you accuse me of murder or anything. I would rather be guilty of that rather than be accused of this.
Yeah.
Being someone from a protective nature and, in my background and, wanting to be a father and desiring to be that, but that was the key to it, is my ex knew where to hit me the hardest. She's very narcissistic, and she's a taker and I'm a giver, and we fit great until things weren't going well. And then she, kind of went down her path, and she's never recovered from that. And I could have gone down a very wrong path, but I said, I can't. She's accusing me of this stuff and saying I'm this type of person. I'm not going to give her any fuel to go with that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep it, she can act out and she can do whatever she wants and whatever, but I'm going to stay at this level, and I'm just going to be consistent. I'm going to be me. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens, happens. And, that's been going on for over 5 years now, but anytime something like that comes up, the Secret Service is going to, they get notified that there's some kind of investigation. Mm-hmm. They say, okay, well, your security clearance is suspended until until this is resolved. Mm-hmm. So you don't work for, a few weeks or a month or whatever. And then once things are resolved, then they'll interview you and kind of go on about their business. And I'd already done that once before, and we cleared it all up. And then my ex took it to another level when things didn't work out for her, because I challenged her in court to see my daughter, and then that's when she escalated it to going to a child psychologist and getting other people involved to try and make it look a lot worse. And that's kind of the thing I say. It's like when someone who is controlling you or controlling your behavior, that once they can't do that anymore, they're going to try and control what other people think about you. They're trying to control the narrative and all this. And she had a legal background as a paralegal and stuff too, so she knew how to take all these various actions to start attacking me. I was just kind of like completely caught off guard. I was like, this is like the woman I committed my life to and all this, and I can't believe, like, I didn't want to believe that she was doing it. And I wanted to believe that it could be, I could survive it and our marriage was going to be okay, which was completely asinine. That was kind of one of those wake up calls where it's like, no, that's where you draw that line. And it's like, I can't be this ignorant little boy anymore.
Yeah.
You've got to step up. You got to face this. Otherwise you're going to lose your daughter, because people are going to believe this shit. Mm-hmm. So you've got to show them who you are and what you're made of. And that's where I've been, ever since then. It's been a long road since then. Yeah. Kind of going down that. But when that happens, the Secret Service, they got involved but didn't get involved. But they're aware of it. They know what's, the deal. And I had actually advised them that it was coming. Told our the internal affairs sort of area, I was like, this is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my bosses, I said that something like that could happen because I just had a feeling like something's just not going to go well with this. And when it did, it did. And we went down that road, and the investigation itself came out with nothing. No evidence. It even said in the report, no evidence of abuse. Any sort of physical evidence or any other type of
and this
evidence.
is the Secret Service side of it, right?
No, this was just like the child abuse investigations,
Okay.
law enforcement. That when they got involved with it, their report came out. There's no evidence. The report said there's no evidence that this is involved. That the child has said nothing. Nothing about her father in any negative way. And there's nothing here that we can find.
Mm-hmm.
And the Secret Service, then they didn't really get involved, but, I had to go back and deal with the clearance issues and getting back to work.
Yeah.
They were giving me a hard time because the Secret Service is very image conscious.
That's true. Yeah.
And they want to have that worthy of trust and confidence. And I'm right here, about to go to the president's detail kind of position, and it was sort of a, you don't know what you don't know. And they're kind of like, prove that you didn't do it. You can't prove a negative. You can prove something happened.
Yeah.
How do I prove nothing happened? Like, what can I do? I can't. And they just kind of give me a hard time about it. And I was like, you know what? I want to talk to my, attorneys and labor attorneys about this stuff, and I'll get back with you guys about this. And I left the offices that day, and I had actually already been sort of going down that road, but I put out a lot of applications to the folks that I knew, and I left the service. And ended up I was in a better place and making more money, and I was like, things came out on the better end.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of like, at that point I was like, they're not going to have my back, and it was just sort of this feeling of I've been blackballed because they're not going to, my career is not going to be able to go where I would like it to go because they're going to be like, if we're wrong about this guy, we don't want him in a position that might look bad on us, if it comes out. So he's going to go over here and he's going to do this, and you live your career out in kind of like mediocrity.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of, I was like, I could have kind of fought it and dealt with it. I was like, and I felt, I was like, it's not over. I was like, I still haven't seen my daughter, and I still got to resolve this. And I was like, no, I'm done. And I'd been with him for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I always had an attitude, and I told my now ex-wife this, that I'm never going to let a job, career, or anything stand between me and my family. And that if I have to walk away from what I've built and what I push myself to be as a Secret Service agent, because you're unhappy in D.C., you hate this life, and things aren't going well for our family, then fuck it, we are out. I'll go be a CPA. I'll be whatever. But I'm not going to pick a career over you and our daughter. And that was kind of my attitude.
Yeah.
And I was like, I loved what I did. And although it was a lot more about the guys I worked with and some of that camaraderie and some of the shit you dealt with, but I don't miss a job at all. I don't miss it. Go to another job making more money with better human resources and more respect for your personal life. And
Ooh, yeah.
And you're like, wow, this is what, okay, this is cool. But I was happy to kind of get away from that environment, and I don't regret that one bit. I mean, there was, a few things I would like to have done, but I overachieved beyond my dreams.
Yeah, you did a lot of shit.
There. And,
you did a lot.
There were some things that I thought I'd have liked to have done, but it's like, a lot of guys aren't going to do that anyway who are there. So, for 20-something years. But at that point, I kind of knew, I was like, okay, it's time for me to be different. And it was like, I've got to be the father I need to be. And that's kind of where my mentality started to change from. I'm trying to, and even in all the stuff I did from being a CPA and firefighter and, bicycling and doing all these things, it's like, I'm doing that because I'm trying to find my purpose.
Yeah.
Who am I? What am I? I'm trying to figure out who this guy is, and what is it that makes me tick. And I kind of found that with the service because it brought in that financial, that intellectual side of my life with that blue collar law enforcement protection, and it blended them into one. and it felt right. I didn't always like what I was doing, but it felt like in a sense, I felt like it was where I belonged. I was fulfilling my purpose in a sense. But then it got to a point where it just becomes this bureaucratic type of stuff, and you're just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of over all that. I'm not going to miss all this stuff that kind of comes with it. But going out of that, you start to realize like all the things of, you kind of go through that fulfilling your purpose thing. But I ended up, that's how I ended up in Jacksonville initially, working for a financial institution.
Mm-hmm.
And building out their incident management program they didn't have at the time. They'd grown to a point of regulation where they had to implement a company-wide, type of incident response in a sense. How are we dealing with data breaches and large-scale frauds or physical, security issues and stuff? And they had all these little departments, but they didn't work with each other. And I'm like, okay, well, if you have a data breach and all these news trucks show up to interview all our employees as they're walking out of the building, I was like, that's a physical security issue. You need to be talking to these guys over here, and getting that sort of intercompany communication in terms of on issues and stuff. And that's what I did a lot with the Secret Service was helping. You had these data breaches, and you're like, well, here's what you need to do to help build your companies out to protect you. It's like, just assume that you're hacked. How are you going to deal with it? How are you going to respond? You just got to assume that it's going to happen, and you got to be prepared for it, and then hope it doesn't. So a lot of it was preparation for things like that. But then I got a promotion within my first year there, from assistant vice president to vice president, and took over the fraud department and started there were a couple of different areas that we're trying to merge them together and sort of make it more cohesive, get everybody on the same investigative system for documentation and everything, and working on all that. And then I got a third manager in just barely over a year. Well, this is a company trying to trying to build itself and figure out where it's needing to go.
Yeah.
And he comes in, he's like, we need to do things like this way, which means that your position, shouldn't be what it is. I want these people doing this thing that you're doing. And he was like an IT security guy, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with fraud. So he wanted to break that off and move it over to this other area, but take the incident management, and he wanted it in legal with like our privacy folks, so that they could have, if anything happens, there's like an attorney-client privilege type issue there where, being able to be protective, of the company's information and stuff, of what they release, how they release it, and who releases it. And it basically came down to is he didn't want the responsibility of when the shit hits the fan, he's the supervisor that has to deal with it. Even though it comes through me, I'm sitting there, I'm like, when something hits the fan, call me.
Yeah.
I'm your guy. I'm not going to sit there and say, what do we do? I'm like, okay, put the plan into action. Here's what we got to do. Let's do it. And he didn't want that responsibility, because if it goes wrong and it fails or something goes bad, then it's his ass on the line. And he just wanted to be able to, from a risk management, say, you guys need to fix this. You need to have this. And he just stands back and tells people what they're doing wrong and how it needs to be better. And he didn't have the responsibility of when something goes wrong. And I ended up getting like a severance package and left. They paid me out for like a few months and was like, but the position didn't exist anymore. They restructured everything, and it was just kind of like, well, we've got this over here, but literally you are way too overqualified for that. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. So I left that, and ever since then, I've kind of been on my own, kind of formulating where do I want to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of like, okay, well, I just gave myself into, and I put a ton of time and energy into everything, because I was trying to create something they didn't have. And you got to change like hearts and minds when you're doing that, in a sense. And you got no budget to do it in. And, this is a corporate world, and they're like, security doesn't make money. It's like,
That's
no,
right.
but if we do it right, you don't lose money.
You save.
So it makes money
It saves
by
money.
helping you lose millions, or helping you keep from losing millions. And actually, I had one fraud case, and I was like, are there any others like this? And I was like, and he said, yeah, there's these. I was like, okay, that's, a sample. I was like, and you found these in the last like few weeks. Yeah. And I was like, and that's coming from these folks who are sampling 10% of what's really coming through. So that's only 10% in 2 weeks of what we're really seeing. And when we started getting into it, and I said, if you would have stopped these loans from getting processed through here, just that 10% that we caught and identified was well over $1 million in loans. Actually, it was a couple $1 million
Ooh, wow.
In loans. And I was like, that's 10% of your population that actually went through. I was like, so multiply that out to what really has come through. And I was like, you need to change a couple of your processes here. And they fixed that process. And there's no guarantee that those loans would have gone bad. But if any of them had gone bad, each one is $250,000 a pop that they end up footing the bill for or losing. And it's kind of like, if you do this one thing here that we've identified, because they're trying to streamline the process to make it smoother. Well, they streamline it and they cut something out that needed to be there. It's like, you put this little thing in here, it's not really going to slow down your process any, but if you do this, it's going to prevent this, these bad loans or this issue from going through. And it could prevent millions of dollars in losses. I was like, and it's just one little case we found. I wouldn't say we stumbled upon it, but if I wouldn't have gone to my investigator and started asking him questions about it, nobody would have. It would have just been like, yeah, we had a case, we noticed this thing, and kind of pass it off. But it was just kind of like, it's, and I'm like, I was like, in that one case right there, I said, we paid for our department for years. Anything we want and need should be paid for just because of what we just did right there. But companies don't realize that. They don't look at it as we have to spend all this money. Well, that's cutting from the bottom line. And they kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's like, do they want to spend so much money to hire more investigators or to get this type of system so that we can better do our job or something? So, but being in that environment, I thought I shouldn't have to fight for this stuff, and deal with all that. And I looked at kind of going back into that at other institutions and stuff, because I was like, this is not this is all I know, but it's like I'm still trying to be that same kind of guy and not let it go. And it just didn't work out. No. And I've kind of gone back, and my divorce ended up being finalized. And just to give you a little more aspect on my divorce, I'm sure we can get into it, but when the divorce was finalized, I got the house, all the property that remained in it.
Oh, fuck. That's a good lawyer.
I've never paid not a good lawyer when you got a bad defendant.
Oh, okay.
I filed for divorce. I divorced her. Wasn't the other way around. I never paid $1 in alimony. I didn't have to pay any alimony. I've never had to pay child support. I'd given her money, but she's kind of done a whole lot of crazy things. I was like, I'm not giving you money to support you to do crazy stuff to try and keep our daughter from us. Yeah. I was like, when you want to cooperate,
work something out.
We can figure something out. And she also got ordered to pay me $81,000 in attorney's fees for having to.
Holy shit!
And that was the portion of my attorney's fees that was dedicated to having to defend myself from the child abuse claims, because at that point they had become repetitive, and so much had been like no, and then she goes to another state and location and does the same thing again, like in Florida, in Orlando area, and does it all again. Trying to claim the same things that she did in Virginia, and Virginia's like, we've already investigated this stuff.
What? That doesn't make sense because jurisdiction, like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she tried to, and that's been the biggest thing, she tries to tries to get other jurisdictions involved. And it's I'm a, woman and child, and we've been abused. These people don't have any clue what's going on. They rush in to protect the mom and child and, ban me from anything because I'm a bad man. And then they get so far into it and they're like, oh shit, we're wrong. And then they kind of back out. And, I've had Florida's Department of Children and Families came in and tried to take all my rights away. And then by the end of the case, the judge threw it out and was like, and then the Department of Children and Families comes back to me and my attorney, and they're like, will you allow us to have jurisdiction for another 30 days so we can ask the court to get a psychological evaluation of your ex-wife? And I'm like, Virginia will take care of this. You're not allowed to be a part of this case anymore. You have shown that you do not have the integrity to continue on in this. And I went to Virginia, and I eventually, sold the property that we had up there, and I collected part of the attorney fees. She still owes me $40,000 or something in attorney's fees for this mess. And I eventually went through all that process, and I just kept doing everything. I was like, this is the legal way to do it. And the whole time, she keeps doing all these things and trying to get the courts to intervene, and I'm not seeing my daughter, for, year and a half at a time. And I was awarded sole custody. I had sole physical and legal custody of our daughter.
Oh,
through
good.
The Virginia, which is where our divorce and custody and everything was processed. And I took custody of our daughter a year. It was at the end of April 2017. And I had our daughter for 5 weeks. It was, when I kind of struggled with, like, why is this taking so long? Why am I having to go through all this? And it's like the why me mentality and experience this stuff. And when I get my daughter back, it's kind of like she's with me for a while, and I see why. It's because my daughter had to experience what she was going through with her mother, that when she came with me, it was the greatest thing in the world for her, because of her mother's control and what she was doing to her. I wouldn't say it was anything like abusively bad from a physical sense like that, but the mental and emotional toll that she was putting on our daughter, and she was having to wear this, like, kids, she's 8 years old, and she was having to wear this, like, kids phone/watch, which is a GPS tracker. So that, and she wasn't allowed to take it off, to the point of where her skin was eczema on her skin, just being rubber raw, because she's not allowed, and it was like getting too small for her hand, for her wrist. And I took it off of her when I picked her up and took custody of her, and she just kind of looked at me and gave me this look like, thank you. Like, I've wanted to take that off for so long, kind of thing. And my daughter would talk to me. Like, my daughter's having these, like, she's 8 years old and having conversations with me. Then I'm like, I shouldn't be having this conversation with an 8-year-old. But I would never talk bad about her mother, and say that her mother was a bad person, or her mother is lying, or doing this or doing that. I was like, if she doesn't know it now, she's going to know it on her own. She's got to figure that out on her own. I'm not going to talk down about her. That's where it's like, I've got to be the better man. I got to be the better person in the situation. And when she would kind of talk about some things, and she would ask about stuff, and she would tell me that Mom says that you did things that weren't right when I was, like, 3 years old. And I said, well, what do you think about it? How do you feel about it? I'm not, I won't ask her yet. I try, it's okay, well, if you want to talk about it, then let's talk about it. I'm talking with an 8-year-old about whether I've abused her or not. And it's a tough conversation to have in my truck while I'm driving. It's like, ooh. She would, ask me, and I said, well, what do you think about it? She's like, I don't remember anything. I was like, well, I would tell you because it's nothing happened. I said, I can't prove to you nothing happened. I said, well, when you spent the summer with me, when you were able to come visit me, when I had a visitation time, and that was like the year or so previous of that, I was like, when you spent that time with me, did you ever feel like that? I was like, did you ever feel like I was going to hurt you? Did I ever do anything that you felt was wrong? Or did I ever touch you? Did I ever hit you? Did I do anything that made you feel like you weren't safe, or that you were scared? No. I was like, well, then that's really your answer. I was like, I can't tell you I did or didn't do anything. I mean, I can tell you I didn't do anything, but it's what you feel and what you believe. I said, that will always be what, matters. I said, because people can tell you something happened, but it's what you believe and what you accept is what, it is. And I wasn't going to sit there and tell her, no, your mom's a liar. She lied to you. Well, it makes me just as bad as your mom. You got to let her figure it out for herself. You're around me. You see the type of man that I am. You see how I talk to you. And she would say that, if she, and I told her, I said, if you want to talk about what's going on, because this is a transition. You've been in this school in South Carolina. I tried to hold my wife in contempt of court so I could get my visitation back.
Yeah.
So she left the state of Florida, went to South Carolina with our daughter, didn't tell the courts, didn't tell anybody. So that's parental kidnapping. To hide out, and use like her parents' address, and she's staying somewhere else, kind of thing. And I tracked my daughter down to where she was going to school at when I had custody, and I went and took custody of her. And my daughter was kind of like, I don't think my daddy knows where we are, kind of thing. And the guidance counselors had expressed some concerns. Like my daughter was late to school 38 times in the school year. Like not 10, 15 minutes late. Like school starts at 7:45. She's showing up at 10:30. 10 and 10:30 in the morning. So it was, there was just whatever was going wrong at home. And the behavior and mental health of my ex-wife was, just not in a good place, I guess. And she would say, she comes going to say, I'm hungry. Sometimes, with that. And that's what the guidance counselors are telling me. Not my daughter, the guidance counselors, because it gets reported to them.
Yeah.
Those have been some of the things I've, trying to deal with that, but trying to, when my daughter asked about, some things or, what's going on and the situation. And I said, I don't want to take you away from your mother. I said, right now you're you're going to be staying with me and I have custody. So you're supposed to stay with me. And, right now you're not supposed to be able to see your mom right now. It's like, she's got to do, some things to be able, so that we can get some time so that you can see her. And I wanted to work through the process.
Yeah.
She needed an evaluation. She needed to get into counseling and supervise visitations until she can establish establish that she's not going to run off with our daughter or something. But I was like, I want your mom in your life. You need your mother in your life. I can't be your mother. I can be your father, but I can't be your mother. You need her. And I want her to be in your life, but it needs to be in a way that's healthy for everybody. And I want you to be able to see your mom. I want you to be able to see all your mom's family. I want you to be able to see all of my family, and of course, me. I want you to, everybody that you love and want in your life, I want you to be able to have access to them. And it doesn't matter how I feel about your mom or anybody. That's not my place. I'm your father, and I'm supposed to be, it's up to me to make sure that you get what you need, not what I want you to have, or what I think you shouldn't have. And her mom's got issues, but she still needs a mother in her life. I don't, and I still hope it's not to a point where she's not going to be able to see her mother for one reason or another. But I had my daughter for 5 weeks. I picked her up in South Carolina. I stayed there for 4 weeks, so I didn't have to take her out of her school because she only had 3 or 4 weeks of school left. And if I brought her back down to St. Augustine area, they only had 2 weeks of school left. And I'm like, I'm going to stay there. And I had a place where we could stay that was, safe and comfortable, and kept her in school to a year. And she's like, can we just go ahead and go to Florida? I did not expect this to go so well. I expected her to struggle with the transition. She's like, no, let's go. I don't want to be here anymore. She was so ready to go live this life with me. And I'm like, wow, this is why I had to wait. She needed to be ready for this transition. And we were good. I got back to Florida for a week. By the end of that first week, I got a knock on the door, 1 o'clock in the morning, and 5 St. Johns County Sheriff's officers came in and they took her. And she had left from South Carolina, went down to South Florida where she has a very wealthy aunt, was hiding out at her place, and she went and tracked down a judge that was in another county and didn't tell him what all the background was, but that I was abusive, I'd done all these things, and he gave her an order to take the child away from me. And it's a way in circumventing my custody orders out of another state. And the judge wasn't even really aware of that. But it's the domestic violence side of things, and she used a protective order to sort of circumvent the custody, because she knows she can't go through Virginia and some of these other places to be able to overturn what I've done. And they won't put up with it because they've threatened her with jail already for contempt of court and her failure to, and her continuously bringing up this stuff that has been, time after time after time, refuted. And she just goes and finds a new place, or some, whether it's a judge or an area or something that's more conducive to listening to her. And she's good at it. She's refined it. She actually, when I picked up my daughter in South Carolina, she did it in South Carolina. She tried to have that done, but the judge wouldn't let her do it. But we went to court for it, and she tried to give some false documents or false information to the judge, and I gave the judge the genuine documents from Virginia and to show the jurisdiction and that what she was doing was a lie. And the judge read through them all, and she just looked at her and went and Judge Judy on her. And called her out and was like, "You're trying to circumvent this custody order." And it's like, you are not doing what's in the best interest of the child, and I was like, I felt bad. I was like, I'm not saying a word because I'm not going to get this judge's anger or whatever directed at me. I'm just going to sit back and shut up. And she threw everything out, and that was literally like the week before.
Yeah.
And then when that didn't work and I went down to Florida, went down to Florida and did the exact same thing again and found a judge that would do it. And right now, I haven't seen my daughter in over a year. That happened at the end of June, and she was taken from me.
And how come they're not going to honor the Virginia agreement?
Well, we went before the judge, and Florida didn't even have jurisdiction because our daughter had only been in the state for a week.
Yeah.
She has to be in the state for 6 months for them to even be able to consider have jurisdiction. But what they do have is called temporary emergency jurisdiction to protect the child. So he enters in this order, but a temporary order is supposed to be, okay, I believe the child might be in danger. You've got 16 days, 90 days, go back to the state that has jurisdiction, like Virginia, and get the appropriate order to protect your daughter. Because this is temporary. I don't have jurisdiction to do anything more than that.
Yeah.
Well, he gives an order that I'm not to see my daughter until she's 18 years old. 10 years. And that's it. Nothing else. And they're also supposed to, anytime they find out that there's another jurisdiction involved, like Virginia, they're supposed to have a conference with that court to settle any jurisdictional disputes or any issues. And this has been, it's been this way for a few decades now to prevent these types of things from happening.
Yeah.
It's why it was put in. And all these states have adopted these same laws about this. He just ignored all of them. And handed down an order that's completely, violates Florida's own laws. And right now we're in the appeal process, and hopefully it'll be settled out before the end of the year, and it'll all be thrown out, or it may be thrown out, or maybe it's sent back to that judge, and he's forced to have a conversation with the Virginia court, and they will then, address the jurisdiction and what has happened, and resolve the issue here. But in the meantime, it's taken a year of my daughter's life away and left her with a woman that's been abusing her.
And do you know where she's at now?
South Miami. My daughter's not in physical danger. She's just under mental and emotional control. I don't like it for her. I'm very, it's very frustrating. And I've sacrificed myself and my life.
I mean, this is really...
Yeah.
I know it's rough. Like, I can't imagine, the pain. And
I gave up everything I was so that I could try to be the father she needed. And it's been tough. And I had to grow up.
That's... The thing is,
in a sense. But, a lot of it was... I was very... Not innocent, but I had to take a stand.
Yeah,
and
of course.
This is, I don't like what's going on, and this isn't, this isn't about our marriage and our life and my wife anymore. This is about my daughter and her future, and this sucks. This is costing me, every time she does this, it's $10,000 in attorney's fees or more. It's like, it's breaking me, from that financial aspect. It's like, you got to have a 6-figure job just to be able to keep up with the legal fees. But I've been able to manage with it, and my biggest goal is to not let it, define who I am in a negative way, to not let it change me. to make me bitter or angry and vengeful. Because it's not a person. Like, I don't take it personally. She attacks me left and right and calls me this. Her attorneys, God, they berate the shit out of me. And try to make me look bad. And I just stand there and it's like, this isn't about me. She's got mental health issues, and it's clear. And these are her issues. I'm just a target of her issues. If it was somebody else standing up to her, they would be the target of her issues. I'm just the one who refuses to let it go anymore. And I'm drawing the line in the sand for it. And if that means I'm going to get attacked, then I'm going to get attacked. And I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to cost me. But, the other alternative is I just give up on my daughter. And not having my father in the home, I'm like, that's not an alternative for me.
Uh-huh.
So if I have to sacrifice everything I've got for that, then at the minimum, if I don't see my daughter for another year or 2 years or till she's 18 for some reason, I can't see how that could be possible, but you never know. I didn't think it was possible for her to be taken away once I got custody, but here we are. And that's it happens. As bad as that was, and I went through, from last June through February, I went through the deepest depression and period of anger I've ever experienced in my life. And I didn't know it's like I didn't know hell had a basement, but it does.
Fuck.
And but here I am today, and I picked life back up, and from the respect of seeing my daughter, nothing's changed. The appeal case has moved forward, but I finally had to accept the fact of where I am. And I went through the classic stages of grief. It was denial. There was anger and rage and
bargaining.
Bargaining. Yeah, I went through a period of, I'll just do this. We can just do that. Just anything. Let's just make something happen. It was like I was still trying to control everything. I had zero control over. And I just went into a period of depression there with that. And eventually, came out of it. I just kind of hit a point where, it was so hard, and each week it was, like the appeals case is moving forward and things, and I'm trying to control something I can't control, and waiting for something to get filed or something positive to happen, and I'm like, we're right there, and then it gets delayed for a week, and I'm like, oh God, and then we're right there, and it delayed for, I'm like, oh God, and then finally I quit calling my attorney, I quit asking. It was like, when it's done, when things are done, they're done. He's going to let me know, he's going to send me this, and I've just got to let it go, and let it go. And then it's like the sun came out, and nothing's changed, but my attitude is like, okay, now it's time for me to get life back in order so that when my daughter does come back to me, in however form it is, whenever it is, if things don't go the way I feel they should or the way that I think they legally should, then in a couple of years, when she's 12, 13 years old, she's not going to put up with this anymore. And she's going to take a stand, and she's going to be finding me. And I'm going to be there for her. If that's what it is. Or whenever that time comes. But until that time comes, it could be in a few months, when this case is resolved. I don't know. And I got zero control over that. All I can control is me and what I'm doing. And when she comes to me, I need to be ready for that. And I can't be in a depression. I can't be like letting my life go to hell because I'm sitting here, looking back at what happened. And so it finally just, I'm finally able to let go of that and look forward. And it's like literally in these last 6 months, my life has like completely changed.
For the better?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I'd been to a point where it's like, I can't, you say you can't continue doing this, and you don't want to feel this way. And I'm not going to let this, and early on I went through such anger that I've never felt before. I'm not an angry man. I'm too, dealing with stuff growing up and all the things I had to deal with and all the places I've been, and I've been dropped in foreign countries by myself for 3 weeks to fend for yourself. You just got to be flexible.
Yeah.
You just deal with it. You're not going to get things the way you want. You just, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we got to do, and you do it. So I don't get angry over stuff. I get frustrated, mad, but like that rage, anger of, I don't ever experience that. Like it takes a lot to get me angry to something like that. But I was so angry over what happened because of the injustice of it all. I'm like, this is impossible. Like, you can't write this up. Like, this can't happen, but it happened. And it was just kind of like, this is just unreal. And it made me so angry.
Of course.
That. It's like, I expect this from her. I expect this type of behavior from her, but how could this happen? And I was just so angry. And I'm like, I can't allow this to, this is not who I am. And I'm not going to become someone who's angry and bitter and all this stuff. And I was like, no, I can't. Because this is going to take me down a road that, I'm going to end up with nothing. And blaming everybody else for what's happened to me because I don't have anything and I am not anything anymore. And I was all this great stuff, but now I'm a bum. I'm like, nope. But I had to turn from that. And then Hurricane Irma happened.
Yeah.
And I had went through Hurricane Matthew and had just sort of gotten myself settled here back in Florida when it happened. I had left to Virginia for a while to deal with the selling of the house and stuff.
Yeah.
I got back here. Hurricane Matthew happened. I was looking to get a job. I was looking at other stuff. I was looking at Standard Gentleman. I was starting to build that as a side project.
Yeah.
But I was still looking to do full-time employment. And then the hurricane hit, and my background kicked in. I've remodeled, my own homes, helped friends do stuff, and I got friends who are now been, evacuated from their homes and can't go back because there's a foot of water in them. I'm like, all right, I got you back. And the same thing happened to the same group of people again with Irma. And I went in and I rebuilt 6 homes. And then, exterior stuff I did over this past spring. And while I was going through this hell, that's what, saved me through the depression of everything. Because I got up every day. I went and got my hands dirty. And I just kind of dealt with it. I didn't sit at home. I didn't, cry in misery. I didn't just, accept my fate of this sucks, and then not be able to pay the bills because I'm not getting out of bed and doing it.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't have gone to a 9-to-5 and smiled and, dealt with people like that. In that kind of situation, in a corporate environment where they might expect me to be a corporate officer. I was like, that wasn't going to happen.
And then that's too cold of a place too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could have handled it. I mean, I couldn't have been what they would have wanted me to be and what my resume was showing that I was. I didn't feel like I could have been that man. But it seemed natural to me. It's like these people they're now not in their homes. They can't go in there. There's, we got to get this cleaned out before mold starts growing in days. So I went to work. And they all got insurance money, so they all paid me. I paid my attorneys, I paid the bills, and I'm like, I kept doing it. And now they still call me to do other stuff that's not flood related. I'm kind of like, I helped you guys. I'm happy to help you in a way. I said, but I'm trying to go in this other direction now, and I appreciate you. It's kind of like I don't want to do construction for my life and stuff. I was there because you didn't have anything else. You didn't have somebody there to help you. And I wanted to get you back in your home as soon as possible and restore your life. Because I knew I was capable of doing that. And I did. But now that's done. And just because you want a nice new whatever over here, and I'll build it better than this guy for probably a little bit cheaper. Sorry, I've helped. I'm still helping out a couple people that I'm really close to, but I'm trying to get my company and kind of go in this different direction, and not just with that, but just with my life in general. So, and I'm not really here in Florida anymore. I can come back and visit and do some things. It's kind of what I'm here for now is to help a couple people briefly, and then I'm going to go back to Virginia. Where I'm at and kind of keep building out what I'm building there and also helping my family in South Carolina do some stuff. A little bit of a gypsy, it seems like, but I'm trying to move forward. But I mean, everything now, it's kind of like, after I kind of dealt with things in February, it was kind of like, okay, well, I've got to, it's time for me to, to take my path forward. And for the first time since it seemed like my divorce, I quit looking and dealing with the storm. It's like you're in the storm, but now you're finally like, it's still going on. The storm's still all around, but I feel like I'm above it. And now it's like, I'm going this way. This is my path. This is where I'm trying to get to. And each day I'm getting closer and closer to that. And I'm trying to, I'm building my life and I'm rebuilding my life the way I want it with my company, and I don't have to answer to corporate rules and regulations. I don't have to work 9 to 5. I may be up 7 o'clock in the morning working. I may be working at 2 o'clock in the morning. I might be hiking in the middle of the day because I'm taking pictures of something that are going on my website. But I'm out in a beautiful setting that most people, wait for their weekends to go to. But I'm trying to build my own life. And the reason I even started to do that in the first place initially was because when I got custody of my daughter, I wanted to be able to take her to school every day and pick her up every day. Because she didn't have me in her life all the time. And I wanted her to know that I was going to be there. And she didn't have to fear whether I wasn't going to pick her up that day or whatever, that she needed to me in her life consistently because she hasn't had it. And I needed to build that. And I didn't want to work a 6-figure job, make a lot of money to have to pay somebody to raise my daughter. Because I took her, I took custody of her and her mom can't see her. I was like, why would I do that? So I decided I had to build my own life in some way. And I was like, as long as I can make enough money to keep a roof over our head, maybe I can do that for a few years till she's more self-sufficient. She's 8 years old at the time. Maybe when she's 12, I can go back to corporate work. I can do whatever, and I can start, making sure that we're making enough money to pay for college or whatever it is. So, it's kind of that was the initial thought of Standard Gentleman of what can I do with what I have and who I am, so that I can be a father first, and not whatever job title is.
Yeah. Because
I don't give a damn about titles. I don't give a damn about what salary you want to pay me. I've achieved all those things. I've made 6 figures. I've stood outside of the Oval Office, and there's nothing another job can give me that's going to match that achievement that I've already gotten when I was 30-something years old. And that's amazing. But at the same time, I've spent the last couple of years, while I'm rebuilding houses, trying to, and it took me back to my foundation of service. When I first, even before I started cycling, that really kind of triggered a lot of this stuff was, I was forced out of my mom's house to live with my dad. And it was when there were some issues there at the home with my older sister and stuff, and my dad took custody of me. I was 3 years younger, and I moved in with him. And I was kind of like, I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't unhappy about it. It was just kind of like, okay, whatever. And but they got me involved with. I had been hanging out with the wrong people, and all the people I'd been hanging out with at that point in time, they've all done stints in prison. I mean, I could have very easily gone down that path. But I'm like 15 at this time now, and 14, 15 years old, and I got involved with the youth group at church because I'm now going to church, with my dad and all. I had kind of gone some, but now I'm in this youth group stage, and got involved with that, and I went on a mission trip with them to, it was after Hurricane Andrew went through Homestead, Florida, and we were helping rebuild some homes and helping people out there. And that was the first thing that triggered, and people were so thankful and coming up to me and thanking me for everything and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I can do this. This is fun. It was the first thing that kind of excited me about doing something. And it didn't really seem like much at the time. But when I look back, I was like, that was that point where I found that calling to serve. Yeah. And that's sort of when I saw that, that opportunity in cycling, that's what, triggered that, was because I did that. I was like, that was an awesome experience. I want that again. I want something like that. And then when I experienced it for an entire summer, and it's like, okay, and then you try to go back to a CPA life, and you're like, I need to experience this as a life. But there are a million ways you can do that. And that's kind of been the last couple of years has been in basically sacrificing myself, and I put the business on hold and what I was thinking of doing with it, and kind of going down that path. That's just kind of said, okay, well, let me help these people. And I didn't intend for it to be that way or to be that long, but it was like one hurricane after another, and it's like, here I am. And I'm like, I got to get out of the state before another hurricane season comes through here. I was like, by God, I'm not doing this a third time. You're doing all your work at 2 feet and below. It's like, my knees can't take that. I'm 6 foot tall. No, thank you. But I wouldn't give anything for it. It was excruciating, and I hated a lot of it. It was a lot of work and a lot of hours and a lot of pain, physically, working on some things for just days and days on end. Just trying to get people in their home. It's like, you don't take a day off. These people don't have a place to stay. And I had a friend of mine staying in my place. So you're just trying to, help make things right.
Yeah.
And that's been, going through that and kind of, it was humbling in a sense. And, I was living, and I proved to myself in a way that I don't need a corporate job to pay the bills and to live on my own and to do this stuff. And I don't have to do all these other things. I'm capable on my own. Worst case scenario, I can do some of this other stuff and I can pay the bills. Mm-hmm. But now I'm back to that, okay, well, I can do whatever, but it's time to take a risk. If I want something amazing and I want something that is purposeful and whatever, then, it's time to do that. And, a couple of months ago, I kind of, I left Florida, kind of moved out, and now I've kind of gotten started between South Carolina and Virginia, and now a resident of Virginia and working up there. And I'm in South Carolina in a sense because a lot of my family's there and I'm there a lot. And my sister has they've gone through some stuff and they need some help getting a property they have there up to par so it can be sold. And they weren't able to do it, and they were going to have to pay a lot of money for someone else to do it. So I offered to help them out. So I'm kind of in South Carolina a little bit to help them with that, at least for the next couple of months, and then we'll kind of go from there. But moving forward in Virginia to see where we can start building this stuff. And I had a lot of I didn't expect Virginia, but opportunities came. And people I did a lot of things for that helped me. I helped them a lot that were here in St. Augustine. They have property and have other stuff up in the Chesapeake, Virginia area, and asked me if I could help them, to do some of this stuff. And it kind of was like, yeah, I can. And it's helping giving me that foundation and support to be able to now do standard gentleman the way I want to. So it's kind of like, man, it's like I can't believe this stuff is just kind of it's kind of falling into place because I was like, I need to take that step, and then when I needed to take that step, it was like somebody was there to pick it up. I'm like, man, I don't know how these things happen like this, but it was kind of like, okay, well that's what it's meant to be. So here I go.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, not cut you short, but like we are close to 2.5 hours now.
Yeah. I told you I could go on for
days. It was pretty. No, it was pretty in depth. Like it didn't feel like 2.5 hours, but I had to wake up early in the morning, so we got. Okay. I feel like you answered most of these questions, so I'm just going to give you. I'm just going to give you the last one I ask everyone since we already went 2.5 hours. Okay. This is the only question I'm going to ask from this list because you probably covered everything. What is the worst thing you have ever done, and what is the best thing you have ever done in your life? I ask that question to everyone. Fine.
The worst thing I ever did in my life was allow my former wife to control me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of gave myself over to her and said, have your way. Whatever you need. I didn't stand up and be the man that my daughter needed me to be. And had I done that, at least earlier than I did, or, from the very beginning, then my daughter would not have to have gone through this stuff. Doesn't mean our marriage would have been saved or anything, but she wouldn't have been able to, do that, make the accusations and do all this stuff and make me look bad like she's tried to do. Because I would have been standing up to her from the very get-go. But my willingness to sacrifice myself for her and our family compromised, myself and our family and our daughter. And it's allowed her to use that against me. And that'll always be my biggest mistake. But at the same time, I don't regret it because it's brought me here and it's made me this man I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And had I not done that, I wouldn't have had to face so many insecurities and so many faults and things that I have, and I wouldn't have met the people that I met along the way and the people that have opened up my soul and have shown me parts of myself that I would have never seen. And I can't be any more thankful for that. So in ways, it's the worst thing I've ever done, but I'm also so thankful that I did it. Mm-hmm. At the same time. It's embarrassing in a sense because as a man, you're like, I gave up my masculinity to this woman. And it's kind of like, I hate saying that, but I did it.
So I did the same thing with ex-girlfriend or ex-fiance. I did give up my masculinity too.
Yeah.
So it's a hard thing, especially when it's a hard thing when you love someone. It's like you're willing to give up a good part of yourself just to try to make it work.
I'll never do that again. The door's open. You can leave, as far as I'm concerned.
What's the best thing you ever did in life?
God. I don't know. Maybe volunteer to take that cycling trip. Where would I be without that? Something. Everything's about what got me here. And there are some ugly things that got me here, and there are some beautiful things that got me here. I could say, creating my daughter, being part of her DNA. Because whatever legacy I leave in this world, it's her. She's the only thing that's going to carry on, really. I can write a bunch of stuff and put stuff out there, and maybe that'll carry on, but eventually people are not going to have a clue who I am. But what I teach her and what she becomes, hopefully that is my legacy, and then she takes that and passes it down to her children, and it passes down. And if I'm lucky enough to standard gentleman, I'm able to, help another couple people who then pass that down, and that's the goal. Is one man can help change the world.
Yeah.
Just by, I just want to help people. I want to educate. I want to, bring light to, the dark corners of who we are and as our, individuals and society and everything. We're going to see how that goes.
Okay. This was a really interesting episode. Man, you lived a very unique and hard life.
I can die a happy man. I can tell you right now that if I'm not here tomorrow, I've lived this life to its fullest.
You did.
And I may not have all the things I desire in life right now, and I may not have my daughter with me today, but I've left my mark out there, and I wasn't complacent with who I am or who I can be, and I've taken risks, and I've lost, and I've succeeded, and if I die tomorrow, then so be it. I'm not afraid of that. It's kind of like, okay, well, I've had a great life.
Had a great life. Thanks so much for being really open about what's going on. Thank you for being open with your story, and I hope anyone that's listening to this episode actually learned something out of it, because there's a lot of powerful lessons from this whole episode. A lot. And thank you again for coming on.
Absolutely. Any opportunity I can to get any kind of message out there, even if it's sharing the ugly side of my life, or, something great I've done or whatever. It helps.
Okay.
And I'll rip myself open for it.
All right. Well, thanks again, man, and thank you everyone for listening.